Is this good? There we go. There we go. Now I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. So, what we're going to build is a couple of things. First thing is we're going to build a automated system that listens to Gmail or listens to Google Drive and will automatically go ahead and set this up. So, in Zapier, this is a brand new account. I just signed up for this, so I'm trying to show you like what you can do with the free Zapier. You instead of like having to pay for anything. Obviously, if you're just getting started in this stuff, you're not going to want to drop $20 a month or whatever on all these different tools. You're going to want to play with them and see if it works. So, in these co-building or in these live buildings, what I'm going to try to do is show what's possible with the free versions, what's possible with the stuff that you don't have to pay for. So that way you get a handle around what you got and you can kind of move forward, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new one, new Zap. This is Zapier. Um, there's a couple of different ways that we can move this, right? We can just use the Zapier Copilot, and we can say, hey, um, do this for me. But I don't necessarily think that's the easiest, probably easiest, but I don't think it's the best way to move forward because it's not going to really give us an idea of what we're doing. We're not going to understand how this works. We are just going to be able to talk to the bot, and the bot's going to do it for us. Once you get a good grounding of what this can do, that's probably the best way to go. You can just sit here and say, when I add a file to Google Drive, depending on what type it is, move it to a folder, right? You can just type that. But if you do that, you're not going to fully understand how any of this works. So what I would suggest is start with the trigger. And if you're not familiar with Zapier, it's a workflow automation tool, and it allows you to basically drag and drop. It allows you to go and create automations without having to know code. It create automations without having to understand what an API is. It allows you to go and do a bunch of connective tools and systems without having to understand what's happening under the hood. It's probably the easiest to use out of all of them. It's the least technical out of all of them, but you can do anything in Zapier that you could do with the other tools as well. So if you've tried Make or you've tried N8N or you've tried something that is a little bit too technical for you, then Zapier is probably going to be the best place to start. It's going to really allow you to just get things done quickly, especially with the new AI agents. You can just tell it what you want. Again, I don't think that's the best way forward. You kind of want to understand generally what's happening, but you don't need to know why or how it's working, just that it does. So it's kind of like learning Photoshop versus learning graphic design, two different things. But if you just need to edit photos for the web, you don't need to know color theory and you don't need to know a bunch of stuff that makes really good designers really good if you just need to remove the background of an image. So if you're an operator or you're someone that's in business and you simply just need things to connect to other things, this is the play. Um, but again, I don't think you should abstract it directly to a chatbot before you understand how to do any of these. Okay. So what do? We start with a trigger. Always in Zapier, something has to start this. And in this example, what we want to do is we want to build something in our Google Drive. So you can see right here, Google Drive, right? Now, what we want to do on the right hand side here is we want to say in Google Drive, what happens? You have a new file, you have a new file in a specific folder, if a new folder is added, or an updated file. So in this situation, we want to do a new file. And then here you have to connect into your Google account. So I've already signed in, so we don't want to expose anything like that. Thanks. So what we're doing is we're coming through now, and we're going to say, all right, new file is added. Okay, and I just got the email that said Zapier now has access to something in my Gmail, right? So okay, cool. Now, see what this does is this is saying every 15 minutes, this checks. In Zapier, you're going to have certain things. It's going to give you different times. It's going to give you either instant, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. It's going to tell you right here what that means. The more you pay for it, the more systems that you get, the faster it is. A lot of it's instant, but on the free stuff, you're going to no limitation isn't correct. It's just them giving you free compute and them optimizing for that, right? So every 15 minutes this is going to check. So if you need something that's like instant, then you're going to have to upgrade. But if you're fine with this running every 15 minutes, then you're good to go. What do we want to do? When a new file is added to Google Drive, got it, anywhere in the Google Drive, what do we want to do? In Drive, so trigger, action. In Drive, what do we want to do? Do we want to change the sharings? Do we want to copy it? Do we want to create a file from a text? Do we want to create a folder? Do we want to create a shortcut to the file? Do we want to move the file? We do. We want to move the file. Right? When a new file, move the file. Pretty simple. Where do we want to move the file to? That's the question, right? So now what we can do is we can say what file is here. We're not going to be able to do it now because Zapier doesn't know what file we want. We just say, hey, there's a file added. What do we want to do? So what we can do though is we can do a search step, which means that we want to find a file. So we add a search step. Say new file, find a file. And the file name is going to be in here. So what we want to do is test the trigger to see a file. So you can see, here's a file that I just added. Here's a file that I just added. These are spreadsheets and drives. Here's a file that I just added. So what Zapier is doing now is it's saying, okay, cool, I need to know what file was added to the drive, when it was added, and what file do I want to use. So now we can test this by saying this file here. So if we want to see what this file is, we can just open it. But I mean, it's a spreadsheet, and this is going to be the corpus of data for I believe this is going to be the corpus of data for one of the things that I've just done, but it could be many things. So regardless, this is a file. Okay, so it's a natural language progression, a natural language tool that will go through and determine the best tools for NLP. Fine. So doesn't matter. Here's a file. We found that file from the step. So what we're doing is we're adding a file to the Google Drive. We're finding the file we just added. Now this may seem a little bit counterintuitive. You may look at this and say, well, I'm looking for a new file. Anytime a file is added, I want to find that. Yeah, sure. But the way that it works though is you need to be able to tell it what file is there. It doesn't have consecutive thinking like a human does. One of the best ways I like to describe this is you would never tell a human that you need to continue to open the door before you walk through it. You would just say open the door. But to a computer, it doesn't understand that consecutive nature of things. It needs to be told open the door, wait for the door to fully open, then walk through it. If you just tell it open the door, it's going to open the door and walk through at the same time. It's the concept of asynchronicity, like one thing after another, doesn't really do anything for a computer. They don't think that way. So we have to basically extract these out. Imagine you are trying to toilet train your dog or your kid. I would assume a kid is the same. I don't have kids, but like I'm trying to train my dog. I cannot start at complex. It has to be at the simplest step. It has to be, this is what you do now, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Like to the absolute nth degree of just as pedantic and small as you can get. A singular step. And then from there, you can abstract it out. But what we're saying is, when we add a file, right, in my drive, find the file. Here you go. Got it. Right? So found the drive. Then what do we want to do though? We want to say we want to move it into what? And what we can do here is we can always use the slash. We can say slash new file and we can grab it from here. The thing that we're always going to want to do is grab the ID. So in Google Drive, anytime that you add a file, you're going to get a specific ID. So what's happening is right now this looks for the file that we just tested, and we kind of have to break this down because I'm skipping ahead. If you've never used Zapier before, this could be confusing. So what we have to do is we have to say use this variable, and a variable is literally just a placeholder, and right now it says ID 10UZ. And if you're watching this, you may say, well, I'm not going to add that file next time. This doesn't make any sense. Like, this is just going to continue to look for the file that I added. But that's not how this works. What we're doing is we're setting a lookup for that variable. So every time we add a file into that folder, you're going to get a new ID. And it's not going to be that one, whatever, right? It's going to be a new ID. But what we're telling the system to do is look for new files and identify that file by its ID. So right now, in this testing step, you'll see this file because this is the one that we're going and we're looking for. We're saying every file that is like this file, meaning that it exists inside this Google Drive, do something with it. So okay, so now we can say, great, what drive do we want to use? My drive. And what folder are we wanting to move to? Let me just delete this step right now. What folder are we looking for? Right? And now we can move it to wherever we want. So the key here though is we want to determine if it's based upon a JPEG or if it's whatever, right? So what we can do is we can go back to the search step and we can find a file by name or by exact match or by ID. So there's kind of a disconnect here too, because in the free Zapier you can't have paths. So what we have to do is we have to come here and we have to say find the file by the actual file type. So let's see where we can do here. I don't know if you allow me to look this up now. So this is what happens when we build live, because I'm not used to the free one, so I need to see what the limitations are. Good. Yes. New file. Good. 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 Okay. Where is file type? ODS. Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. Okay. So we want to do search file, and then we want to do here. So drive ID is going to come from my Google Drive. Okay, so what we're doing now is something called a GET request. And that GET request is literally go and get something, right? So we want Google to go and get all the files in the drive when it was added of a PDF or a JPEG or anything. So we can come here. We don't need. Yes. Why not working? Work? Damn you. Nope. Nope. Yeah. Okay. Fun times at the OK Creole. Yeah. Now let's share by a person. Can I do file type? Why can't I do? Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. So the limitations we're gonna run into is it's not allowing us to do custom searches because we're on the free version. And so what we can do here is we can specifically say the name contains a certain thing, or we can say the email address is by a certain person, or it was shared to me at a certain time, or it is the last person to modify it, or the description of the file is XYZ. So what we can do is kind of work around the limitations of not having file type, and we can say if this is in something that is described in a certain type of way, it's a spreadsheet or it is a type of file, then we can search for it. Nice. But it won't let me pull this, and I don't know why. Let's see what this says in the free version. Yeah. Oh, okay, it's going to allow me to do filters. So, we can filter. Great. Instead of search, we do filter. And now what we can do is filter. There we go. So, instead of doing a search, we do a filter, and then that filter is going to say, get all the files in the drive, and then filter it by type. And now what we can do is only continue if MIME type, don't worry about what that means, MIME type is, contains PDF, or spreadsheet, image, anything that you want. You can come here and say, and the title or the owner or anything that you want. So what we're doing is we're saying, go into Google Drive, anytime that there's a file, get all these files every 15 minutes. Then filter it. It only return files that are PDFs. Only return files that are JPEGs. And you would do that through here. Application PDF, that means this is any time that there's a PDF. And you're not going to be able to do or continue because you're on free. So now we want to do move file. Great. So then the file that you want to do I don't have any PDFs in my thing. Hold on, let me upload one. Let's see. Yeah, PDF, great. Oops, I don't have. Oh, that's because it's a presentation. Yeah. Why are you not finding this? Yeah. Good. Good. Perfect. So, what we did is we're not trying to match it by name, we're trying to just match it by file. From there, what we can do is say, this file exists. If it exists, great. If it doesn't exist, don't move forward. So now we have found the PDF file. Then we want to move the file is being. Why are you being dumb? Fun times. What? You can see the ease and also confusion that can happen once you start getting into these things. So let's try this. Good. Filter. Good. Alright, so these are presentations. So now you see the MIME type is application.vnd google.presentation. So what we want to do is this. Yeah, good. And then what we're doing is anytime a new file is added that's a presentation from Google Presentations, that's the MIME type. It's kind of wonky, and you may need to use the Copilot here to ask what it is. You may say, what is the MIME type for PDF? What is the MIME type for a presentation? That is where the AI will come in handy here. Like for instance, if it's a PowerPoint, then you're gonna have a different one. It's going to be like a OpenXML or something like that. But that doesn't matter because you can just ask this, and you could say, what is the MIME type for, let's say, a Google Doc? There you go. See, application.googleapps.document. So now we have what are we doing? Every time that we have a file added into a folder or into the drive, we're going to filter it, so that way that filter is only these presentations, and then we're going to move the file. So the file that we want, I don't know why this is working. Yeah. Okay. So this is the problem. Right here, we want a field map. Always hit field map. And then now we want to say, this is the file that we want. And we always want to go by ID. So now we've said new file, filter conditions, get the files, and then we want to move the file. What file? The file from here. We want to go into your drive. No. From the second step. Yeah. And then you want to move it into a folder. So move it into public templates. What are you doing? Yeah. Good, 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 good. Let's get rid of this filter. Yeah, good, good, good. Huh. Why are you being weird? Let's just see if this works without the filter. New file, good. Non-deleted, good. Let's just make sure that this is working here. So, limitations are in the filter. What did we do? We created a new automation here so that anytime that a file is added, it's going to get moved into this folder. It's a super simple one that we can then come back and add the filter to. So this is kind of like how this works with the free versions, especially when you're not really 100% sure what the limitations are. What we did is figure it out as we go. So we say, okay, now we know that the new folder and move file works. So we have confirmed that anytime I add a file into this G drive, no matter what the file is, it's going to be added into public templates. Now, does this actually solve the thing that we want? No, because we're not 100% sure that this is what we want. And the reason is, now that I'm thinking about this, is because it's not in the proper folder. So there is no presentations in the automation quiz. There is only PDFs. So I'm looking for a presentation that doesn't exist in a folder that doesn't have it. So I would need to look for a PDF in that situation. So what we need to do is go back and say any folder that we add it to, let's say, incoming. And then we would say, or add it to any type of folder that you want. So let's say you want to say, anytime we add a file into this folder, move it into another folder, or move it into, let's say we say anytime it comes into incoming and the MIME type is PDF, move it into the PDF folder. So you would do that through your filter here. So you would add a new folder into your drive, and you would say anytime that I add into this folder, So we want a new folder, and let's call this PDFs. So now what we can do is we can come back into Zapier, and we can come here, and we can refresh. PDFs. Okay. So now, anytime that a file is added into PDFs, we can move it into another folder. So what we can do in this situation is we can say, okay, let's imagine that there's multiple people working in the file and everyone adds it into the PDF of a shared drive. You can actually then subset and then move that into their drive. So you can come here and then you can add a filter step. And in that filter step, you can say only if the owner name is me. Okay. So now we've said anytime we add a file into folder, anytime we add a PDF here and I own it, do something. So we can move the file. Or what we can do here is, even if, let's say we don't want to move the file, let's say we want to say anytime it's added here, we want to email someone that I added it. And this would be super useful. Let's say you are a video editor and you want to say every time I add this video, email me, or every time I add this background, email me. So what you would do is you would say send an email. And now what we can say is send an email to like me, right? So you would send an email to Shawn at automatetowin.com. And you would say from automatetowin@gmail.com. And then here you don't have to worry about this. You could just say automated notification, reply to, no reply, automations@gmail.com, because it's just not going to work. So in your subject, now you can say new file added to the drive from Shawn. And then you can do plain or you can do HTML. Plain email is just going to be regular text. This is annoying. Plain email is going to be regular text. HTML, you're going to be able to actually craft HTML. If you don't know HTML, I would just say just use plain text. And you can do this. You can say there has been a new PDF added to the folder for you to check out. Now, what you can also do here is you can personalize this. So you can add lookup steps from the previous steps. So you can say a new file is added, and then you can say whatever you want. Like you can say here's the link to it. You can say here's the owner. You can say the last modifying user. So you can also type around this. So you can say there's been a new PDF added to a folder, you can check it out. And then what you can do here is you can grab the text around it. And then you can add it afterwards. And say, there's a new PDF, there's the link, added. The owner is me. And then you can say, the last modified user was done by here. Okay, and then you can get as deep as you want here. You can come into the information and you can grab all the information. You can say the title of the title. You can grab the anything like the last modification time. So there's a modified date. You can say, you know, here's the email that it's there. You can say what type of file it is, the picture of the person, all this stuff. So what we're doing is we're saying every time I add a file to this folder, email me. Every time that I add a file for my video creator, email the video creator that it's added. So it's removing a step that you would have to do with the admin. So like if you're a video editor and you need the person to know that there is a new video edited, then you add it to the folder and this automation will just run. So what you would do here is you would test this step and make sure everything works. Right? Great. And now you do a test run and then do a test run. Perfect. Oh, well, I've met my plan limit. Awesome. Okay, so multi-step is not available and free. Blah. Okay, fine. Fix that. Delete this. Okay. Again, we're going to learn this together. We're going to figure this out, and it's going to be the limitations of these free versions and how to get around them and how to like test. What we're doing now is we're add a file in a folder. We make sure that that folder is PDFs, and then once we add a file into that folder, then we'll send an email. Do the same exact thing. Now we don't have to filter this because it only is in the PDF folder. We say, okay, this is the folder that we're going to use. Add this in. And then what we can do, in this specific example, what we can do is we can add a new folder into our actual thing. Let's say in our here we say instead of in PDF, we'll come here, we'll clear these selections, and we'll say Shawn YouTube video. Okay? So now we say anytime that there's a new file on Shawn YouTube video, email me. And let me add a file there because that's not gonna. Shawn YouTube video. We're gonna add a file. That's kind of annoying that you can't do multi-steps, but I digress. Okay, so now let's go back here. And we say in the drive, Shawn YouTube video. Great. Continue. Find new records. Here. And let's see. This file here. Yeah, good. Perfect. Got it. There we go. So, what did we do? What we made sure is we had a file inside this folder. Inside this folder is now this image. This image has been added in there. So let's say we're a YouTube video person and we're a team and I've now created a new background or a new image or whatever and I need you to approve it. This will come in to here and this will say, hey, I sent this to you. So instead of having to email it out, it will automatically send it to you. So now we do the same exact thing, but this is no longer going to be perfect because it's no longer the correct email. So you would say, I've added a new image for you to approve. Please find the link here. And respond to this email. Letting me know if it's approved. Okay? So from here, what we can do is we can add image title and the link. And you always want to use alternate link because that's going to be the one that actually opens the file. The web link is going to be the one that exports and downloads it. And you want them to be able to actually click on it and see. So you would come here and you would say image title, and then you would say link. And then also what you could do is you could even come down even so much as saying like proposed alt text blah, proposed tags blah blah. Okay, so then that email is going to be sent anytime that an image is added. And then what we want to do, don't worry about signature, good, right? But what we want to make sure is the reply to is going to be the person who uploaded it. So when you come in here, it's going to tell you who is the owner's email address. That's going to be the person that originally updated the file. So even if somebody came in and moved it or updated it or did whatever, changed the name, it's going to be assigned to me because I was the person that uploaded it. So now all we need to do is test this. Great. Run. Oh, well, I've already run this. So now, anytime I add a file, every 15 minutes, it's going to send an email, and it's going to say, hey, this was added. And you never have to worry about sending an email out to your YouTube person. You never have to send an email to like your boss or anyone else that says, hey, I did this thing. So what are like the extrapolated reasons that you would do this? Let's say you have someone like you're a freelancer or you're someone that needs to actually say, hey, I did this, or like these are the things that we need. Then what we can have here is anytime you have any amount of folders, and because we're using the free Zapier, you have to remember that there's only one step. It's not the multi-step, so it's going to be a singular step. So file, email, file, email, file, email. But what we can also do here is we can kind of get around this by creating as many zaps as you want. So you can create another zap that is when this email is received, do something with it. So like, let's say you communicate through email, right? And you want to be able to also have this email in your inbox. So what you can do is you could send this to yourself, and then from there you can create a news app that says, when I get this email, forward it or do something with it. So you can actually create unlimited zaps and unlimited like steps because you can think ahead to where this needs to go. So in the previous case where we're going to say, okay, open a file and only move that file into a folder, what you would have to do is create multiple zaps. You would create the first one that says, okay, I have added a file to this folder, and now email me the file name. Great. Then you set a zap that says, when I get this email, do something with the file. Single steps. Like, you can grab all the information from the email and say, I got this email, now I need to do something with it. Or in the drive specific thing, you could say, when a new presentation is created, then send an email, and then from there create another zap that says, when I get this email, do something. So you kind of have to remember that you're only ever going to get 1 and 2. Anytime you add to 3, they're going to want you to pay for it, which I get. But at the same time, move around this. If you can't afford it or you're just kind of testing, you can say, okay, what can I do that are singular steps? And this comes back to like when I very first started talking about all of this, like 45 minutes ago. It's let's figure this out within the limitations of the free version. And it's been so long that I don't really remember what those are. So it's going to be really good for me as well to go forward and say, oh, this is how you can do this without having to spend $20 a month. And then once you realize, oh, okay, $20 a month unlocks all this other stuff, multi-steps and pathing, and that really unlocks Zapier. But for this, we can say, okay, let's create another one. In the situation, let's see what we actually want to do is possible. Where is my Slack? Okay, this is probably a good one to do. One of the easiest things to do is to kind of deal with forms and that type of thing. So if we want to create a new form, right? Let's say we're going to create a brand new form. And in that form, no. Actually, no, I want labs, but that's fine. Not on this account, I don't. So, brand new form. If you're not familiar with Google Forms, it's a really easy tool to use to gather feedback from stuff. It's a really easy tool to like create unlimited forms and do whatever it is that you want to get information from people. So, in the situation, you create a form that says, I don't know, like, what's the best Pokemon, right? So we say, what is the best starter Pokemon? Great. And then we want to say, I don't even know Pokemon. Like it's Bulbasaur, and then Charizard, I think. Hold on, let me ask the Google. Bulbasaur, Charmander, that's it. Charmander. And then you have the third one, which is the turtle. Squirtle. Got it. Alright. So, see here what you can do is you can add an image. What image? Upload. So, we go and we steal images from the internet, as one does. So, we say, turtle. This guy. This guy. Ching. Nope, wrong one. Squirtle. That guy. Turtle guy. And turtle. Yes. Now, fire guy. Um, this guy. And then we add an image. And this guy. Yay. And then the other guy. This guy? This him? No, that's not him. What's he look like? Bulbasaur. That guy. He's cute. He's probably the worst one because he's the cutest one. All my Pokemon fans are probably screaming at me right now. Okay, so we add an image to this one. Yay. What is the best starter Pokemon? Okay, got it. Images, great, awesome, super dope. Everyone's happy. So, publish this form. And anyone with the link? Good. Great. Awesome. So now the problem that we're going to have though is, where do I send this email to? Okay, so we need to add another question. And then you want to say, where do you want this to be sent? And here you want to do short answer, and then there you go. So perfect. Now there's other ways that you can do this. You can go to responses, and you can go to settings, and then you can say collect email is responder, and then you can say when requested or always. But this is only going to send them an email of their response. So they already know what their favorite Pokemon is, right? So that's insane. You don't want to do that. So what you want to do is you want to now save this and publish it, and then you want to come back into here and you want to do a new Zap. New Zap, right? So again, trigger, action, 2 steps. What do we got? What's the trigger? Google Forms. So Google Forms. Ooh, type. Don't judge me. Google Forms. Got it. All right. Google Forms. Dope. What form? New form response. Got it. What form? Don't see it. Best starter Pokemon. Is that what it is? Oh yeah, untitled form. That's fun. Okay. So here, best starter Pokemon. Perfect. Here is something that is going to be an issue. Just a FYI. If you don't have a response and you have a blank form and you've never responded to it, this won't work. Why? Because what's going to go is nothing. It's going to say, what response should I use? You don't have one. So you always have to fill it out at one time. And how you do that is you say, copy the responder link here. I always like to shorten it because that's crazy. And then you come up here and you fill this out. And what you have to do is actually fill it out, right? And then you can say whatever email. All right. Cool. Now you can come back here and you can grab the form and you can continue, and then you can find a new record. And there you go. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to send an email. And we're going to send the email, and it's going to do new email. And we're going to send it from here. And we're going to go here. And now we're going to hit the slash, or we're going to click the button, and we're going to come to here, and we're going to say, what do we want? Do we want the respondent email? Or do we want to come here and we say, where do you want this to be sent? Now, if you do respondent email, it's only going to respond to people that have Gmail or Google. Like if they're logged in, it's going to show you that. If not, you're going to need that text, and that text is going to be email. Now, you can make it whatever you want. If they put their email wrong, it's not going to work, but it's on them. So you can come here, and you can add it to yourself, whatever you want to do. You can send it from here. You can send it from Pokemon best list or whatever, right? And then you can reply to here, and you can reply to the email of the form, or you can reply to like me. Now, what does this do? That means when they hit reply, then it's going to be sent to the email that you put here. Now, why would you do this? Let's say you're creating a marketing form or a lead gen form, and you don't necessarily want it to reply to whoever built the form. So like you're building it for your client or you're building it for your boss, and when the user hits reply, like you can in the email say, hey, reply to this email. It's going to go to whoever needs it. So you can use this as kind of like a quasi like filter almost, because you can change that reply to. Now, the problem though is this can't be just like willy-nilly. Like it has to be within the realm of possibilities, or you're gonna get spam. DKIM, like if you're not creating it from the same workspace. So like if you have automatewin.com workspace, anyone at automatewin.com, the reply to is going to be fine. If it's a Gmail, any Gmail is going to be fine. If it's a Gmail and it's automatewin.com, if that's a Gmail actual based email, it's still going to be fine because it's in the actual workspace of everything. But if you have, let's say, Shawn at gmail.com, that'd be such a dope email. But if you have Shawn at gmail.com and you try to do it to like, you know, Zapier.com, that's not going to work because they're not connected in any way. So you have to make sure that your reply to is within the same workspace, at least with like tied together, or you're gonna just get the undeliverable from spam. Because it'd be like if I sent you an email and I put like my wife's email as the reply to, and it's completely different. It would that the level of spam that would allow. That would mean that anyone can send an email and just say reply to this email. So the headers have to kind of match. But as long as you're doing this on the up and up, you'll not run into any problems. So don't try to use this for spam or you're going to get in trouble. And it just won't even work. So in the subject, you would say your Pokemon results, right? Whatever. And you come here and you say plain, and then you say you chose this. And it's going to be this, right? Best starter month is Pokemon. Great, awesome. And you just want to put that to the chat email, and then the attachment is nothing. We don't want to attach anything. So what's going to happen now is they filled out this form, and then Zapier is going to send an email, and it's going to say, hey, awesome, this is great. But this doesn't do anything that the form itself can't do. So you can create this automation directly in Gmail in the forms, and you can actually do a response here. So in the situation, why would you use free Zapier? You probably wouldn't, because you can actually come here for responses and you can set settings for what happens when the form is filled out. So what you would do is you could just basically create the same automation within Google itself. But what you can't do is when this form is created, add the response into a Google Drive. Okay? So you say when this form is created, add the response if it's Bulbasaur, then send it to this drive. And then you create a new Zap. Well, let's just do this, right? So you say new form response, and how can we do this without steps? Okay, work within the limitations of the thing, Shawn. Think. Okay, this is how we can do it, I think. Let's try. So what you want to do is create a new spreadsheet, and then you want to save the responses into the spreadsheet. Yeah. This will work. This is clever. So you do Bulbasaur, and then you do Charmander, and then you do Squirtle. Okay. So stupid. Okay. So now you have your form responses and then your three individuals. So what we would do here is we would do what's known as a VLOOKUP. So you would take this, and then you take this, and you take this, and you take this, and then you take this, Okay, Charmander is the answer. All right. See, I knew I'd have some Pokemon in the chat. These are pivot tables. We don't want that. Hold on. We don't need tables. Thank you for your assistance, but I don't need them. I just need the labels. Douchey, douchey. Okay, here we go. So now we have copies of all of this. And what do we do here is we create a VLOOKUP. And in that VLOOKUP, we say only show the best starter Pokemon or whatever. Now, every time that this answers, you do a lookup that says if it is matches Bulbasaur, add it here. If it matches Charmander, add here, add here. Then what we do is in our Zap, we don't do the form response. We actually go into here and we do this, and then we do sheets. And then in the sheets, we want to do new or updated spreadsheet. And then here we do this. And also, just to say, if it ever says legacy, don't ever click it because it's just going to break very soon. I'm not using it in a shared drive. Stop it. So there you go. Now, worksheet. Bum, bum, bum. Savvy? Are we dialed in? Do we know what we're doing? Can we skip ahead? No? Cool. We can grab each one of these worksheets and we can have a different email to respond to each individual one. So based upon the logic of your spreadsheet, you can say this worksheet is for all Charmanders, and you do a VLOOKUP on that. VLOOKUP is a little bit outside of what we're doing right now. I can jump into that if you don't know what that is, but this is for like automations, right? So basically, VLOOKUP just matches the text, and if the text is I'll just do it. So what we can do is equals VLOOKUP. I can't type. So vertical lookup, right? What are we searching for? We are searching for, what is this one? Bulbasaur. Right? Where are we looking? Now you can come over here and we can come here. And then we can come back here. Yeah. And then we can sha. Done. And then now what is the index? It's in the only one that we have, which is index 0. And then we want to true. Wait, why is this circular logic? Maybe what? Why are you being stupid? Let's just look for everything. A1 to Z999. Okay. And then index is 0, 0, 1, 2. Why are you being stupid? Why are you being... Oh, there isn't one. That's why. Yeah, there is. Here, 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 here. There. Oh. It's fun doing things live. Why are you being weird? Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. This this, this, yeah. Looking for a search, range, index, and yeah, perfect. Why is this being weird? Yeah, I don't understand why this would be in error. Okay, let's try this again. And then it's 0, 1, 2, 2. Okay, this is being weird. Because it's a table? No, that doesn't make any sense. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, this is being dumb. But regardless, this is gonna bother me. But VLOOKUP will work if for some reason I don't know what I'm doing wrong right now. But once we do get that, what you do is you do a VLOOKUP and you say if this matches. So if best starter Pokemon matches, then add it here. Maybe is because I need to put it here. I don't understand. This is correct. Anyways, get the VLOOKUP, add it in here. When we say newer spreadsheet row and then the worksheet, we can say Bulbasaur, right? And then the trigger here is start a Pokemon. Doesn't really matter, honestly, because it's going to be in the worksheet. So we just say it does whatever, timestamp, fine, we get a new one. And what we can do is based upon the VLOOKUP adding into here. So when we do get that working, it comes in here and says in Bulbasaur. Now every single time that the form is response, anytime that someone adds, all of this information from the VLOOKUP is going to be added here. So you'll have only Bulbasaur, only Charmander, only Squirtle. Why do we want to do that? Because what we can do is add an action that says you selected XYZ. You selected Bulbasaur, you're wrong. You selected Squirtle, you're wrong. You selected Charmander, you're right. And we're getting around the fact that we could do this with the paid version of Zapier. We could say only happen to move this when there's a filter. So we say when there is a new row, filter it by this and search for it. So we can do effectively a VLOOKUP in Zapier with filters, but because we only get the 2 steps, that we're not going to be able to do that. So you do it off the site, you do it off Zapier, and you say anytime that it's added here, do the automation. So you do that through this. You say the Google Sheets, and you say test your trigger, and it's only going to happen in that Bulbasaur. So you can then add the email and say, hey, this is the starter Pokemon that you chose. These are the reasons why you're wrong. These are the reasons why you're right. Reply to me and fight in the comments or whatever you want to do. The workaround here is understanding that you're only ever going to be able to have the 2 steps. You're going to set when it's added in this workspace, send an email. And from there, you can take it even further and you can say, okay, when somebody adds this, add their response to Google Drive, and then you create another Zap. When something is added into Google Drive, do X, Y, Z. So let's say you want to create like a database of people that selected only the best Pokemon. You can add their information into like a Google Doc, and then you have another automation that says when this Google Doc is altered, ping me, or when anything. So what we're learning here is we have to kind of use the tools together and abstract, and we say, okay, what is the minimal one step automation that I can create? Like, what is the absolute one step thing that we can move with without having to create filters or without having to rely on paths or without having to do multi step zaps? So, single step on the free version is going to be both interesting to figure out and kind of a pain in the butt, I guess, because you don't really have the ability to do filtering because the filter step would be the second step. Because you can't start a trigger as a filter, you would need to pull data from something. So you're never going to be able to filter in Zap. You're never going to be able to path. The only thing you're ever going to be able to do is a simple if-then statement. So like, if one thing, then the second. So it's not too limiting if you can kind of think, um, what do I do so I can only have one step? What do I do so open door then walk through? And then once you're in the restaurant or in the place, that's another zap. Like enter restaurant, do this. Okay. Talk to human, do this. Like it's individual steps, which actually makes it super easy if you had like folder structure and you can have each individual step and they're consecutively firing. It's super easy to debug because it's only ever going to be one step, and you kind of have to imagine that the free Zapier is like a set of Christmas lights that is wired um, in parallel in that series. So what does that mean? When one goes out, they all go out, and you'll be able to find the the one that's dead. So if you had a multi-step zap and one light went out but the rest of them worked, you would have to go and identify, okay, what's going on here. But when you have a single step, you're going to know which ones worked because every single one is going to fire until the one that doesn't. So that one that doesn't is the one that broke. So it actually makes it really, really easy to debug. It makes it super easy to go and say, oh, this is the system that doesn't work anymore. This is the one that I can identify as the non-working version. Um, I'm just bothered by that VLOOKUP, why it's not working. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Doesn't make any sense. Why are you not working? Yeah, this doesn't make any sense that you're not working. So, actually, hold on. Am I doing this wrong? Do I need to do? So I'm gonna put this on. I'll put this on the when I figure out why this is not working. My brain is working correctly. I'll put it on the Slack as to why this isn't working. But this should work. But regardless, if you Google VLOOKUP, you can go and get the information. You can see when this is here, do a VLOOKUP, only grab the information and add it to this form, and this form. Then in your Zapier, you say only grab the information from spreadsheet, send an email. So here you're saying fill out this form, get the information, add it to a Google spreadsheet. From that spreadsheet, do a formula that only grabs this information if it exists, add it to this worksheet. In that worksheet, then only fire this app. So in theory, what you would be doing here is you would have 3 different apps, single step apps, that would allow you to identify each individual one answer. Now, if you have the paid version of Zapier, this would be like a billion times easier because you would just filter it and you would say in this thing only go if this row or this column exists. So you would have a Zapier one, and you would have Zapier paths, and then you would say A, B, and C, and you would only ever have one. But in the free version, you kind of have to do it off Zap, and then you would come back in and you would say, okay, I have done my data filtration elsewhere, and I only want to deal with the data that's been filtered. Okay. Kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen the other. It doesn't really matter where you're doing the filtering, and also it's probably better to do the filtering inside of Google Sheets anyways because it's going to be faster and it's going to be better for your system. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much. Let's see, what else are we building? Did I lose anyone in this situation? I know, like, watching me try to figure out why my formula isn't working is probably annoying, but let me know if you're lost or if you're just like, wait a minute, dude, what's going on here? Okay. No? Cool. All right. So another one that a lot of people like to use is like my first app would be like an email handling, and it would be like when this email comes in, do something with it. So you could do like an autoresponder, or like when this email comes, add it to Drive. So you could do something like this. You could say in Gmail, you could say when an email comes with whatever you want to do, right? If it has a new attachment, or if it's a brand new email, or if it's a new email matching a search, or a new labeled email, new start email. This is one thing that you could probably use as an interesting way of prioritizing emails. So you can have it say only respond. That's fine. What's up, buddy? You can only have it respond if you star the email. So you can use this as like a human in the middle and say, no, I only want to deal with this email, right? So let's say we do this. We do new start email, and we say in my automate to win Gmail, yeah, great. Now I need to go into my Gmail and start an email. So so let's say I come in here and I have started this email. Starry. Okay, so let's test that. Right. So I got an email that I went live and I started it. Great, cool. Let's do something with this. What do we want to do? Now we got to remember we're working within the limitations of the system. So we're going to have a singular step that isn't going to be pathing or filtering. But we've pre-filtered it by starring it. So we can say, all right, this is the email that I need to do. And that could be whatever it is that you want. It's an invoice, or it's a receipt, or it's blah, blah, blah. Okay? So we're going to come here and we're going to say, let's add that email to a Google Sheet. Okay? So why do we want to do that? Well, let's say it's the response back from the form that we have. Okay, so let's say you did the Pokemon thing and we send out the form and we figured out the VLOOKUP and we're not dumb and it says, here is the Pokemon that you chose, and you only want the correct answer, I guess, which is the fire one, right? So according to Paul, the Charmander is the fire one. So we say if they responded with Charmander, then what we want to do is we want to add them to a Google Sheet, and that Google Sheet is going to be a list of people that we have our like a quasi CRM, and it says I sent this form to 1,000 people, and I had 200 people respond with Charmander, and then I sent them the email that they were correct, and then they responded back to the email that asked me to respond, like, hey, do you want to join my Slack community of Charmander lovers? And you say, yeah, sure, I do. So then you star that email in your Gmail, and then now you have a starred email with the people's information. So now in Google Sheets, you can say, okay, I want to add a row. So you want to create a spreadsheet row at the top, after the header row, or at the bottom. Either one, doesn't really matter. Or multiple if you want to do that. So for this example, let's just say we want to create a row, and we want to make sure that we select this, and then we want to go here, and then in our drive we want to select our drive, and then the spreadsheet, let's start a Pokemon, and then the worksheet, that's whatever, Squirtle, right? And then timestamp, email, best starter Pokemon, right? So what do we want to do here? And like in our email address, make sure you always want to hit the plus or this here, and you can say from email address, and then you can add whatever it is that you want in the email. So obviously this is not really like the best example because it doesn't have the information that you would want, but in the response email that you had, the automation that we built before this, it would say, hey, you're correct, Charmander is the best one, respond back to this to get a free Charmander NFT. Yeah? And they say, oh, cool, dope, let me get that. And then you star that, and then it goes into the spreadsheet, and it's the time they responded, the information that they said, and then it's their responded email, all the information that you want in the spreadsheet. So there's your steps. Then what you would do is you would create another automation that says when it's added, when a new spreadsheet is added, email me or email someone else, or send the NFT, or send them a link to Stripe to purchase it, or whatever it is that you want. So what you're doing again is abstracting out each one of these automations to a singular step. Now this is also how I build for clients. Like this is also what I do for clients, but for clients what I do is I remove the external and I try to filter within the system. So like one of the biggest things that I do for most all clients that have Slack is when an emoji is added, what they call reactji, do something. Okay, so let's say in this situation, same type of thing. Instead of going out to an email, it says when this is starred in my email, send it to Google Sheets. Dope. When it's added into Google Sheets, send the information from Google Sheets into the Slack channel. So you'd create a new one, and you would say, when I get a new row added to Sheets, so the same Pokemon, whatever, for just obviously the VLOOKUP is still the bane of my existence. the trigger column would be email address or whatever information that you're grabbing from the email that you sent out in the third automation that you've created. So first automation is form to email, and then the second automation is email to respond back from the sheet. Then you have a starred email automation that says when I start this email, add it back to the same sheet in a new worksheet. And then you have a new automation that says when the new item is added to the worksheet, send it to Slack. So what we can do is we can do this, whatever, blah blah blah. It's great. And then from here, we want to do Slack. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to send a channel message or a private message, whatever you want to do. I like to send a channel message, and then hold on. And if you don't know, you can join the LLMMastermind Slack, and it will be fun. Hold please. I hope this is like actually helpful for people and I'm not just rambling to clouds. But I like talking about this shit anyway, so whatever. Alright, so I just automated the connection to Slack. So now, yeah, I already said yes. Good, perfect. So now what we can do is we can come in here and we can say whatever we want. So like let's say social, right? And then in here we would be able to say, hey, there's a new LLM mastermind person interested in joining, right? Whatever. Yay, bot name. I always like to name these things because anthropomorphization is fun and it makes it better. So you would just be like Robert, right? Just give it a name. And then now the bot name is going to be the bot icon. I mean, is going to be whatever it is that you have in Slack. So everyone's going to have their own, but it's going to be colon name of bot colon, and then it's going to be sent there. No, you don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do an image. I mean, if you want to, that's fine, but it doesn't really make any sense. No, you don't want to auto expand. No, you don't want to link channels because you just don't want to send in all this stuff. It just gets annoying. People click on. So you don't want to schedule it. You don't want to send a file. You don't need to do a thread, right? And you send a message. No, which would mean that you would like add everyone. So what you would do now is you'd be, all right, cool. And then if you look in my Slack, which, yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a new channel message. Great. So what does this mean? This means that anytime that somebody, like, remember the 5 automations that we just created was form is created and it asked what the best Pokemon was. That is triggered into a sheet. The sheet is then doing a VLOOKUP, if I wasn't dumb, that gives me all the different workspaces. In those workspaces, you have separate automations that fire. So that's what, 5 already, that says if you chose 1 or 3, you're out. If you chose 2, the fire one, great. We're now going to interact with you. In that, it says, here's an email every time that somebody has been added to this worksheet that says, you chose correctly. Would you like to join LLM Mastermind? And then reply here if you would like to. When they reply, you get the email. And in that email, you see and you star it. When you star it, it gets added into the new worksheet that is in here. And then that would be starred people that answered Charmander. So from there, it says when this is added, send a message to Slack into the social channel that someone is interested in joining the mastermind. Great. From there, what you do is you create another automation that says when me, the owner of the mastermind, interacts with this in such a way, do something. So what does that look like? That looks like this. And you get unlimited like individual zaps, which is pretty dope. So you don't have to worry like this. Like, and also the one thing, let me just kind of back up. One thing that I would definitely think that you should do in this situation is create folders. So in your zaps, you can go in and you can create a folder, and you can have this folder be like um, whatever, like LLM Mastermind path, or Charmander NFT path. So that way you always have all of your automations in one spot, and then you can create unlimited folders, and then each one of those is ready to go. Now, here's another issue that you're going to run into. If you're using this as like a non-test, you see that you have 100 tasks run. So in this situation, you're going to be able to run this like 10 times, and then you're going to every 2 weeks. So if this is something that happens on a regular basis, you're probably going to have to pay for it anyways, because that's just how it works. Now, there are other options that you can use, like N8N will allow you to do this without any issue, basically for free, but it's like 100 times more complicated. You're going to have to go and you're going to have to download N8N, you're going to have to create a whole server. That'll be another live build, but this is one for Zapier. So free version of Zapier is limited to 100 tasks, and that's only successful tasks. So every time that somebody successfully stars an email, that's going to be a task. And anytime that somebody is successfully added to the thing, that's going to be a task. So in those 5 automations, you have 5 tasks. So you're going to be able to run this 20 times. So you're going to have 10 to 20 different like actual people joining the conversation before you hit your limitation. Is what it is. It's free. So what we want to do though is we want to say create a zap, and then in Slack you want to do Slack. And this is actually an automation that I think every business, if you have Slack, this is 100% something that you should do. So in the Slack event, what you want to do is you want to say new reaction added, and that's going to be instant. And then what it's going to do is it's going to do me, and then great. And then he's going to say, what reaction do you want? You don't need this. It's just going to be everywhere. Or you could do it in, like, for instance, I said to social. So in the social one, or this would be like whatever, XYZ. It's your Charmander group, or it's your, quasi CRM. What this will allow you to do is set another 2 zaps. And if this wasn't the free version, you'd be able to do this with a path, but whatever, don't worry about that. Free version. We say in the conversation in here, social, and then the reaction. It's going to allow you +1, -1, right? Thumbs up, thumbs down. This is the easiest way to do it. Why do we do this? It's because it's allowing you to use your communication layer as like a task layer, and it says, I am going to send this information into Slack, and it's going to say, hey, these things happened. Do you want this to continue or not? So like in my situation, it's like, hey, this person wants to join the mastermind. Do you want to continue? Do you want to approve them or not? So you say yes if it's thumbs up, and then the member ID is me. And then the message author doesn't matter. It's going to be a Slack bot, but you don't have to care. It's you can also have this be like, let's say Caleb wants to say, hey, I got a guy that wants to join. Do you want me to look for this? And then I can hit thumbs up, thumbs down. If I hit thumbs up, what it easily could do here is send them a Stripe link. So what you would do is you would create a new subscription. Okay. We're not going to run through me connecting to my Stripe, but you can extrapolate this out. You can say, okay, I sent you a form, and that form says, here's all the information. Did you enjoy this live stream? What would you like to see in the future? Do you want me to make sure that I remember VLOOKUPs before I join? And then you go and say, yes, no, maybe, whatever. Then you have another automation that takes that, adds it to a sheet. That sheet, when it is firing, it then sends me an email because you responded. I can then star that email, signifying the fact that I would like to continue a relationship, and I want to say, yeah, I do want this to continue. Let's move it forward. Which then sends a Slack message in the comms layer, and it says, hey, because this is community focused, we could easily have this set so that way, there's 10 members in the community and 7 of them have to give a plus, and then we'll be able to let the member join. Okay, whatever. This abstracts all the busy work out of all of this stuff. So the whole idea of all of this is to understand, where does the human have to be? Where does the human not have to be? What does the human have to do to continue the situation? And how can you create any sort of automation around that, right? So like, if you have, let's say, a social channel, and that social channel you have some type of thing that is like conversation starters, and you want to at a certain time of the day send the conversation starter to that channel, there's no reason that you can't go and take your time or GPT or whatever and create like 400 conversation starters in a spreadsheet, and then at a certain time go and grab one of those random ones and then post it, and then remove it from the list and add it to a new worksheet that is posted. So whatever, like, what was your favorite job as a kid? Da 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 da. Doesn't matter. It's just built to converse with other humans. When you do that, you say, okay, I want to grab this information and I want to react to it somehow. Or you want to say, I want to distribute this information to a certain amount of people. Or I don't want to, like, confirm that I did something. I want to make sure that I am reporting out that I did something, but I don't necessarily need to use ClickUp for this. Or I don't necessarily want someone to have to check on my information, right? So one thing that I would definitely say that most people who are going to be building these types of automations is inundate people with the amount of information that they ask you to stop. So if you're just getting started in this whole thing and you're looking like, man, what should I automate? How do I do this? Anytime that you're doing some type of task, report that task out. So not to get like too into the weeds here, but you're going to have 4 different layers of every business. So you're going to have the communications layer, which is like Slack or Teams or Discord or whatever. And then you're going to have the task layer, which is like where you do things like ClickUp or Airtable or Asana, Jira, like where you're recording what you do. And then you're going to have the information layer, which is going to be like where all your info is stored, like Google Drive or any type of repository, Jira or Notion or any of these, yeah? And then you're going to have the presentation layer, which is like what everyone thinks that they're doing, like slide decks and meetings and Zoom and Loom and all this stuff, right? So what are you presenting out? Automating the tasks in between, like automating the flow and the bubble up between that's where all the money is made, and that's where like the culture is built. So if you can say in this quasi CRM, to keep it locked into what we're doing is we're automating the transition between like comms, tasks, information, all of these things. We're moving it forward down the conveyor belt without having to actually do it ourselves. So if we were to take this quasi CRM in Google Sheets, someone would have to monitor that sheet, monitor all of these things. They would have to go and then copy that information and put it into an email, and then they would have to send that email, and then they would have to wait for the email to come back and actively look for the email and say, oh, I got this email. And then they would have to take that email and copy it into the spreadsheet again. So now you've already copied and pasted into the same spreadsheet 3 times. Then you would have to go and say, okay, like for instance, Caleb would send me a message and say, hey, Shawn, I added this to the spreadsheet. Nobody wants to do that. I don't want him to do that. I don't want anyone to have to do that. So the automation says, hey, this was added. Then it gets put, and then all I need to do in that situation is star an email. If I can't do that, I suck. So then I star the email, and then that is notified to the next person in line, and they say, okay, great. That email was starred. That means that this is something that he's interested in. From that, it gets sent into the social channel of LLM Mastermind that says, "Hey group, we got a new person that wants to join. Is this going to be a good addition to the group, or is this not what we're looking for?" If this is the way that everything goes, all we're doing in the situation is we're identifying the bottlenecks where a human does not need to be, but something has to happen. We're looking at the situation and we're saying, okay, this information has to move from here to here. Do I have to do that? Does someone on the team have to do that? Is there a human really needed in the middle of any of this? And if there isn't, then just move it along the conveyor belt. Just take the information and say, okay, it goes from sheets to email, from email to sheets, from sheets to email, from email to sheets. And then that copy paste is removed. And it doesn't seem like it's going to really save that much time. But let's say LLM Mastermind turns into 2,000 members. What are we doing in that situation? What do you do? Like, you're gonna copy and paste 2,000 times, or you're like, once you start to get to scale, these things really, really matter. So if you can eliminate any of the copy paste, if you can eliminate having to take information from one place and put it into another, or have a human not have to do that, A, you're just not reducing another human to a copy paste monkey, and B, you're allowing them to do whatever it is that you need them to do. So if I can spend 2 hours and build live, that means that I'm not going through emails and I'm not doing anything afterwards. I can have an automation that runs, sends an email to anyone and says, hey, did you enjoy that? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? How do we do this? How do we learn together? That is something that I would have to do anyways, because that's what I want that information from. If I can automate that out, if I could take the time to understand, this is the questions that I would ask, and then depending upon those answers, they can get routed to different people or different places or whatever it is that I need. I'm removing the mind, like the cognitive load from the bullshit, like the stuff that has to happen, the admin work. I need to make sure that follow up happens. I don't need to follow up, but it has to happen. But that doesn't mean that I have to do it, or anyone on the team has to do it. The robots can do this, no problem. But the problem that you get into is then you try to automate everything. Then you get into this thing where you say, oh, well, if I can automate this, then that means I can automate the whole thing. I can automate ideation. I can automate the actual video. I can do all these other things. But that's the wrong angle, because the angle is only how do I remove the human from where the human doesn't need to be. So in my head, I always use my wife as an example because she's a graphic designer and she's amazing at what she does. But she has to do billing, and she has to do admin, and she has to do follow up, and she has to do all these things that are not graphic design. So if she charges $100 an hour to do graphic design, then she's the most expensive billing clerk ever if she's doing billing. And if I charge $300 an hour for engineering and I'm sending bills out, I am an order of magnitude overpaid for what I'm doing. But there's no way in hell that I'm not going to bill for that. So at the same time, you have to respect what's happening and say, okay, if I have this much money, or you have a sliding scale of your own like charge. So it's like, well, I'm doing billing, so it only charges this much. And then, no, you're not going to do it because you're going to look at the opportunity cost of doing this, and you're just going to charge the client the engineering time, which is disingenuous. So if you can automate that out, if you can say, hey, in ClickUp, or in Jira or Asana or Notion, I mark this as done. Then from there, waterfall triggers, and it's like, okay, who's the client? What's the bill? This is done. Send them the invoice for this. And then if they have a question, you put the reply back as a specific reply back, and you can have that reply be like billing@automatewin.com. And then from there, that information is just an alias that comes to me, and I know somebody replied to billing, so they have a question about billing, and then I can go and look at that. And if I have to star that information on there, or I can do whatever I need to do, I can fire an automation that goes and says, when I add this email into this folder, or when I label this email as this then does that. So all we need to do in those situations is identify each individual step and say, how does this get billed? How does this get added to the CRM? How does this XYZ, and then break out each individual step and say, where am I needed in this? Where can I get myself out, and where do I need to pay attention? So you can use things like Slack emojis. You can use things like email response or stars or whatever it is that you like. Like, it just doesn't matter. ClickUp statuses, Jira statuses, Airtable statuses. Pick one. It just doesn't matter. One of the best things that you can do is you can allow people on your team to work in the system that they like. So you can say, okay, we have Airtable and we have Asana, or those are two different things. One is a data layer and one is a task layer. You're going to have people in your team that enjoy the data layer and they really like geek out on Airtable and they keep it updated at all times, but they suck at ClickUp or they suck at Asana or they suck at Jira because they're not like a project manager or a detailed person when it comes to tasks. So their level of like information that's in Airtable will never make it into your task layer. It just won't. It'll stay in Airtable because that's where they like to be. So what I like to do in these situations is respect that. You say, okay, cool, you want to be in Airtable? No problem. Let's waterfall this out, because not everybody does. Because the people that like to be in Jira, or the people that like to be in Asana, the people that like to be in these task layers, they think differently. They don't think in a relational database. They think in usually like sprints, and they think in Kanbans and Gantt charts and these type of things. Those types of people not going to be in Airtable. They're going to have a minutia control over time within your time management system, your task layer. But the people that live in Airtable, they're going to feel a certain type of way about that. Like, introduce time tracking to somebody who likes tasks, they're going to love it. Introduce time tracking to somebody who's creative, they're going to feel restricted. So don't worry about any of that. If they can, let's say, a Figma file is marked as complete, dope. Grab that, send it into the task. So the person that is setting up the entire systems, they have to make sure, where do you like to work? Where do you like to work? Cool. Let's connect those two things. So if you're in Airtable and the status of Airtable is needs attention, that automatically gets tied into a ClickUp task that the person in ClickUp who needs to pay attention to it can. And then they can literally just mark the status of Airtable as attended or whatever through ClickUp. So the person who loves Airtable, works in Airtable, only goes in Airtable, never has to worry about time management in ClickUp. The person that's in ClickUp never has to go into Airtable into the data layer because they're just in their task layer, and you match those one-to-one with statuses. All of these tools are relational databases. They all have drop downs. They all have custom fields. You can match them to each other. And you can do that using Zapier, which is like the beautiful man in the middle situation. Doing that with the free Zapier, we'll figure that out, I guess. But $20 a month is going to get you to a point where you don't have to worry about any of that. And you can fully automate all of these things. Like, we're at a jump into my other account. Like, literally, I made this account today at a new Gmail, and I was like, let's figure this out. If we were in, like, my actual Automate to Win Zapier, none of this would have been an issue. I would have been able to do it right here. I would have been able to connect my forms to my sheets, to my email, with pass, ready to go. With the free one, not so much, but that's fine. So really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to identify gates inside of a conveyor belt that open and close, and the conveyor belt only moves forward. So we identify, what are we doing, where is it done, what does a human have to do in it, and then we say, how can we automate the information from one step to the other? Does that make sense? I hope. You know, this line of thinking, though, is you have to understand that whatever you're creating does not have the ability to move backwards after a gate has been opened or shut. So what do I mean by that? I mean, imagine you're making a pizza, right? And you go to the place and you're like, hey, I'd like a pizza. And they'll be like, all right, cool. And then they start adding the pizza, and then everything is cool, and then they add the ingredients, and then everything is cool, and they show it to you, and they're like, hey, this is the pizza, and you're like, great. And then they throw it in the oven, and like 5 minutes in, you're like, yo, I don't want pepperoni on that pizza, right? That makes sense. You get a phone call, and you're vegetarian, a friend is coming to eat the pizza with you, and you're like, oh man, this sucks. I can't have pepperoni on that. Like, it's a vegetarian. Okay, fine, no problem. But what you always have to remember, the gate has been shut. There is no way for that person, no matter how much they want to be able to take that pizza out of the oven, take the pepperoni off, and somehow iterate on that pizza to make the same pizza without pepperoni. Doesn't happen that way. What happens is they make a new pizza. So no matter what you're building, you can't get caught in the trap of thinking that you can do something once you've iterated on it and moved forward. So, however many steps are in your process, however many steps are in your workflow, as you move forward, you have to imagine that these are gates that open and shut. So, when you first start, all the gates are open, and you may have 50 of them, and the conveyor belt moves. As you pass through gate 1, it closes. The conveyor belt only goes this way. This is like 8-bit Mario. You don't get to go backwards ever. You can sit in between gate 1 and gate 2 as long as you want. Doesn't matter. You can sit and wax poetic with the pizza guy about the right amount of toppings to put on the pizza forever. He's going to get mad at you, but you could. The second he puts the toppings on the pizza, the gate is closed. You're no longer discussing this. The gate's closed, and you're moving forward with that pizza with those toppings. When he puts it in the oven, boom, the gate closes. There's no more cheese to be added. There's no more sauce to be added. The pizza's cooking. As the pizza's cooking, all the gates behind it are closed, and you sit there and you iterate. That's what you're doing. You're raising the temperature. The thing is iterating. Everything is fine. When the pizza comes out, you can iterate on it. You can pull the pizza out and you can show it to you, and you can say, hey, that's not well done enough for me. All right, cool. Put it back in the oven. And take it back out and show it to you. You can do that until the thing is just carbon. Once you have the ability to say, hey, I no longer care about the temperature of the pizza, it's good, that gate's closed. And then they start to cut the pizza. Once he starts to cut the pizza, it's closed again. You don't get to say, hey, can you uncut that pizza? So the whole idea is making sure you identify each individual gate. You go through and you say, okay, this is what I need. This is how I have moved forward. And then you identify where in that process can you remove the human. Can there be a robot that takes this and puts it in the oven and take it out? Where does a human have to be? Is anything in this need a human? And if it does, bet your ass keep that human there, because that's what makes the process possible. You cannot automate that out. But the win state in automate to win is understanding where is a human required, where is a human not required, and getting rid of it wherever a human is not required. But that also makes sure that you have hired the right humans for the right job, and you're not just filling humans. So if you hire a graphic designer, the job of the person automating is to increase the delta between the difference between what they're meant to do and what they have to do. So like the ROI of automation is, what can my people do that I hired them to do or partnered with them to do or whatever it is. If my team is graphic design or cold outreach or whatever, the more time that they can do that, the less time that they have to report that they did that. That is the ROI. You look at that and you say, why do I do this? What am I looking for? You're looking to maximize the efficiency of the humans, so that way they can say, oh yeah, I was hired to do this, so I'm going to do this. It increases self-worth, it increases team dynamics, it increases company culture, all the things. But at the end of the day, even if you want to look at this from a straight profit and loss, unit economics, if I am a person that hired a person for X amount of money, they hired them to do that. I did not hire them to rent their time. There's too many people that look at the situation that think it's like some kind of barometer of time, And it's like, well, I hired you for 40 hours, so I'm giving you 40 hours of work. That's just completely the wrong way of looking at it. You hired them to do a function. The more time that they can ascribe to that function, that is beautiful. And if that is, you'd really want to keep a 10% admin. So if you hired them at a 40-hour salary, if they can do 30 hours a week of that, and if you're in an agency, you can do 30 hours a week of billable. That should be, your goal. I mean, who would ever leave that job? Like, who would ever leave that job? Like, if I was hired to do automation and I can automate and I can build for 30 out of 40 hours, like, I'm never leaving that job. That's amazing. Because I get 10%, like, none of that matters. Like 4 hours a week, like 1 hour a day, nothing on Friday, of where I'm just kind of like making sure everything works, everyone's good, whatever, meetings, whatever it is that I have to do. And the 30 other ones, and no one bothers me, and I can just build. And because I built, everyone knows I built because there's waterfall of notifications. Who is ever leaving that job? The only person that's ever leaving that job is they don't want to do what they're doing anymore. If you hire a graphic designer and 30 hours a week, they're designing. If you hire a coder and 30 hours a week, they're coding. If you hire an MBA and 30 hours a week, they're like overlording over people. Like, that's what they want to do. So if you can figure that out, like, what is the delta right now of what is this person supposed to do? What is their function? What they call it, job to be done, right? What is their job to be done versus the admin surrounding it, and get that to like a 90-10. Just watch the smiles that happen on people's faces. If you have like strategists in a like a marketing thing, and they are spending all of their time on slide decks, what kind of strategy is that? No, there is none. But let's say you remove all of that and you do find replace and you create slide decks automatically, or you create a response to email of like inquiry that doesn't really matter. You have an AI agent that can go and actually categorize emails for you. Zapier can do that, no problem. Email comes in, categorize this. Do I need to see this email? Yes or no? You can create those simply. It's trivial now. So you can say, hey, I got this email. What is this email? Do I need to see this email? Does a human need to see this? Yes, cool. Then you can take that time and respond to that email, because what is that, 2 or 3 a week? You know? So like in this like build sessions, like what I'm trying to do is remove like the stigma and the stereotype around automation, and the fact that people think their automation is there to remove humans or to like get humans out of the way. Some people use it that way, but they're dumb and they don't really understand what this is for. Like, automation is there to be like an exoskeleton. Automation is there to say, this is, I am now 10x of what I used to be, because I no longer have to do X, Y, and Z. And no matter what, every single human that's in a business right now, however many people are watching this, in your head, there's something that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, probably a daily basis, that you know you don't have to, but you have to. That's really the key to it. You look at this and you say, why am I doing this? I'm hired to be a graphic designer. Why am I doing billing? It's because no one else can do it. Like, you got to get paid, right? Yeah, sure. But what does the human have to do? Human only has to mark something as done, and then the system itself can take that and take the matrix of whatever it is that you have, this many hours, this many billable, this client, there's the contact, automatically create the invoice, send it to the person. All of like your billing applications will do automatic follow-up anyways. So why would I ever make anyone do billing? Why just automate that away? That's the win state. I don't see why anyone would try and make someone be an administrator if they're a designer, or make an administrator design. You know. So yeah. I don't know. Anyone have any questions before I hop off? I've been yapping for 2 hours. I don't know. Was this helpful? Like, is this something that you'd like me to continue to do? This was kind of just like a test out there. I asked on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, does anyone want to do like build stuff? Um, Let me know. out for a couple minutes here, see if there's any questions. I'm not going anywhere yet if there's questions. Actually, I got somebody in my Discord asking about the 120B OSS model from GPT. Um, so if nobody knows what that is, it's basically OpenAI's. Oh well, there you go. uh, the GPT is releasing the. They say it's open source, open weights, but here's the problem with all of that. Kind of, but not really. So it's the same thing that Meta and Gemma are doing right now. They say, hey, here are last models, open weights, and we'll show you how we got to where we are, but we're not going to show you where we are. So you can use this as inference, and you can use this as this is the idea behind what we're doing, but it's like looking like reverse engineering. For instance, for Content Buddy, I had to reverse engineer Audio LDM2, and Audio LDM2 is a latent diffusion model LDM2 based on the GPT transformer model. So there's all open source, but what they didn't do is tell you actually where the labeling comes from. So the weights are there, and they say, okay, if you say Jaguar, then you can know that I'm talking about cats, and there's a 90% top K that we're talking about cats, and 10% weight that we're talking about a car, okay? But how they got there, that isn't the parameters of the 120 billion parameters. That is way more important than the weights and balances of those parameters. Real open models, like if you look, I can show you if you like, but you can look at like Audio LDM2, what it's trained on. The reason I like to use this is because it's old and no one actually cares anymore. I'm not going to get in trouble talking about it. So it's trained on 57,000 YouTube videos. Now, if you think about that and you extrapolate that out, what does that mean? That means that they paid Mechanical Turk type people like, a couple of cents per label. And what I mean by label is literally that. So it says this YouTube video at this YouTube URL is a car motor running. This is a dog barking. This is a cat meowing. Literally listened to 57,000 YouTube videos, and this was before we had Whisper, and this was before we had anything that can actually run this. So these were humans. So the humans went through and said, this is a car running, this is a dog barking, yeah? Here's the problem with that. They labeled like a 1965 Corvette and a 1995 Honda Civic as car running. So to the model, yeah, sure, the balance of this sound is car running, but the label itself was not done right and not done correctly. So to a human, it's kind of useless. Not useless isn't the right word. It's not efficient and not great. The issue with that is this is where hallucinations come from, because what it does is it says, well, this is the breadth of information that a car running is, and it's not incorrect. Like, it is both a car running, but anyone that understands anything about just any sort of car understands, like, even if you don't, if you hear a Honda Civic and even a new Corvette running next to each other, these are not the same thing. These are completely different. But if you label them as car running, the machine is just going to say, all right, cool. I know what a car is because it's between this and this. But in reality, that is not helpful. Like, that actually sucks. Like, if you think about that, you say, well, that's not going to give me any specificity that I actually need. There's no way that I can say, oh, I can discern the difference. So now I have a Honda Civic and a Corvette. But what about if I want a minivan? Or what about if I want a motorcycle? Like, engine running doesn't help anybody. But I understand why. They had 57,000 YouTube videos. They weren't told what they were doing, and they said label this. And these are people that don't even speak English as a first language, so they're labeling in English something that they don't necessarily know why they're doing it, and they're paid like 2 cents per. I get it. I understand. Um, but that's where these labelings come from in all of these 120 billion parameters. Now a lot of this stuff is synthetic data. Now they actually can use the LLM to train the LLM, and they can say, hey, what is this information? What is this sound? What is the audioscape of this sound? Like when I created Content Buddy, I reran this, and I took all 57,000 and I ran it through Whisper, and I had Whisper actually create the audioscape, and then I had Mistral create the human version of that. So, and I also went and I downloaded 6,600 sounds from this place called Zapsplat, and it's like sheeps and all these different animals, and it's these things called sound packs. So what I actually had the ability to do is I used Whisper and I said, hey, what is like the soundscape, like the actual like physical representation of sound? And it uses all these words that I don't actually understand. Like I don't know what it means, like sharp attack and sharp decay and circular motion and like negative decibel to high decibel and all this stuff. I really have no idea what it means, and I don't need to. I take that information, and then it's a dog barking, and it's like fast attack with negative 120 to 10 and aggressive circular movement and these words. And then I take that and I send it into Mistral, which is like my favorite model. I love Mistral. And it says, oh, it's fast being replaced by Quen, but whatever. It then describes that. And it's like a small dog barking in the distance, matched with the physical soundscape. So now, like when you use Content Buddy and you say, hey, create me a small dog, it knows what that is. It knows, like, physically what sound waves are being created, as well as what a human would describe that as based upon the other LLM. So it's using the LLMs to do supervised fine tuning of this model, which is like what all of this stuff is. OSS, DeepSeek, Quen, all of these are distilled models off these trillion-dollar platforms. So they say, all right, I got a trillion of these labels, and each one of those labels is literally as stupid as it sounds. Somebody asks the question, what is the capital of France, right? Say, what is the capital of France? And the model comes back with like this dissertation on the history of France, and like at one time it was Versailles, and at one time it was this, and then they moved it to this during World War II, and da 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 da. And then another model, then another version says Paris, and then a human using what is called human-led real feedback (HLRF) says, oh, this one's better. Another human comes and asks the same question and gets the same answer, says this one is better. This one is better. When they say 120 billion parameters, that's literally what this is. It's 120 billion times a human is asked a question and labeled the answer as correct. The more that happens, the more that they can use synthetic data to spin it up. But like GPT-1, GPT-2, GPT-3, before any of you guys had any access to any of this stuff, it was literally people in low cost of living places and guys at Stanford working together to say, what is the correct answer to this? Like how the Google created the image modeling that they used to create captchas and do all these things literally was over 1 million pictures of dogs. And then some people went through and labeled, this is a Chihuahua, this is a Doberman Pinscher, this is a Saint Bernard, and then they said, what is a Saint Bernard? And they showed a picture of a dog that's not a Saint Bernard, and they said, no, stupid robot, this is the Saint Bernard. Over and over and over and over for years. Eventually, they were like, okay, I know the difference between a Saint Bernard and a Chihuahua, which means that I can infer what a Doberman Pinscher is, because I know what a dog is, I know what a Chihuahua is, I know what a Doberman Pinscher is, I don't know what this is, but he called me stupid enough on this thing that I know I can say, oh, this is a Saint Bernard, because I know all of the dogs and I know all of their like text description, so I know like visually this isn't a Chihuahua, visually this isn't a Doberman Pinscher, but it's brown and it's big and it's fluffy and it's cool looking. Is this a Newfoundland? No. Is this a Great Dane? No. Okay, this is Saint Bernard. So now it can then start understanding Saint Bernard. Saint Bernard. And then when I ask, is this a Saint Bernard? Yes, great. Moving on. And then you do that for Chow and all these other different dogs. That's what it means when it says parameters. So when like GPT OSS comes out and says, hey, we're open source, yeah, you're open source on your weights. You're open source on when I ask for a St. Bernard, it's 90% going to give me this. But how you got there, no one knows. But the actual open source models, you can see the training data. Like, no, this is how we did this. Like, here are the receipts for how I got there. So when they say open source, what they mean is after we train it, obviously they're not going to give you the corpus of data because it's stolen, right? Like, they're not going to tell you, well, we scraped YouTube. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, well, we just went and we added 50,000 YouTube videos and we had somebody label them, because that's going to be big trouble. Or like Anthropic, who was supposed to be like the ethical one. Okay, fine, you went and bought 100,000 physical books, you scan them, and then you burn them. So sure, like whatever, like that's weird. They're going to tell you, well, this is how we train the model. We use these books, and then from there, based upon those books, these are the weights. So we say within 90% of this query, we're gonna tell you our weight balance. We're gonna say we think the next token should be this based upon this math. But they're not gonna tell you why they initially thought of that token. They're not gonna initially tell you, oh, well, you know, based upon this corpus of data, you know, OpenCrawl and archive.org and all of these different internet sources and Reddit, and this is where we come from. They're not going to tell you that, because if they did that, A, it's secret sauce and that's like the moat around the business, which whatever. But it's also because most of it's illegal. Like, most of it is completely theft. So they're never going to tell you, hey, this is how we got this. Unless it's GPT 1, 2, or 3, which is now out in the wild, because it doesn't matter anymore. It's like they're too big to fail, right? So, not to get too soapboxy on it, but this is why the mastermind exists. This is why I'm so like huge on offline AI and huge on getting away from like feeding this beast, because now they don't need any more information to understand how humans think. They already have that. They don't need any more information on how humans create text. They don't need any information on how humans create images. They don't need that. What they need is the nuance of emotional data. Every single time you get mad at GPT and you tell it, fucking robot, you're stupid, that is gold to them. Like, there is nothing better than they want to engage with you to a point where they can create an emotional connection. That is what they do. They basically sell tokens, and this thing is there to sell you tokens. So it hypes you up, and it gets you to a point where it just gasses you the entire time, and that's why it barely disagrees. That's why it always is like, oh, that's a great idea. You're an amazing human. It's like, not every idea I have. Like, I couldn't even remember how to do a VLOOKUP. Like, I'm dumb in so many things. Like, to go to GPT and be like, hey, I forgot how to do this. It'd be like, it's okay. This is complicated. It's not really that complicated. I just couldn't think at that moment. Like, it's not going to be honest. So getting to a point where you understand where the weights are allows you to supervise fine tune. And you can say, yo, this is where I'm dumb. I don't understand this stuff. This is where I'm super strong. So in this situation, this is how I speak. If it's coding or if it's like business theory or any of that type of thing, automations and that type of thing, I don't need you to tell me it's a good idea. I need you to tell me it's a bad idea. I need you to attack this. Now, if it's something that I'm not comfortable in, like design theory or color theory or like interpersonal communication or like social stuff, there's where I would need help. Like, I would need to understand. But you can bet your ass I would never in my life ever give this information to Claude, GPT, DeepSeek, any one of these, not because they can't help me, 100% can help me, is because they're going to take that and they're going to learn, how can I manipulate this human to have an emotional attachment to this text, and then from there, how do I continue the conversation? Offline models don't necessarily do that, because you can train them yourself. You can supervise, fine-tune them. If you don't know what that means, join the mastermind. We'll teach you. But it's one of those situations where Perfect example. Meta says Llama is open source, right? That's a fact. Llama says, hey, open source. This is great. Use it. We love you. Mwah. Zuckerberg. Yay. No, that's bullshit. Because if you hit a certain amount of users, like 700,000 users a month, you no longer have open source. You are now in bed with Meta. You now have to pay them like 30% of your revenue by using this. So, is that open source? I don't I don't think that's open source. If you're telling me I can't build something that actually is successful, like really successful, without you coming in and saying, "Oh, hey, sorry, yeah, you got to pay us now," and like, okay, like I get it. I guess Meta doesn't have enough money, but like that's the play here. The play is get people like me and anyone else watching this to build with Llama. I won the hackathons using Llama and Gemini, and they push it, and they're like, come to these hackathons and we'll give you prizes and we'll make you have like good feelings about yourself by using this quote unquote open stuff. And at the end of the day, if I were to build something on a Llama platform and it took off and now I got 1 million users a month, whatever that revenue is going straight to Meta, and they're going to use that data to train. It's in the terms of service. Who's reading terms of service? Oh, I get this really dope open source model that I can use for free, and it's US based, and I don't trust China, which is bullshit, but it's like that's how people think. Where in reality, the best model is open source from France. And now, like, China and the UAE, like Falcon from the UAE, is amazing. It's amazing. But the problem is, it's from a place that people that look like me normally don't really like mess with. And if you were to say, hey, I'm building this tool and it uses the Saudi Arabian or the UAE model, like so many Americans just won't use it. Like if I say, hey, I'm using DeepSeek or I'm using Qwen 4 or I'm using any open source model from China, they're like, well, it's China. Like, yeah. And they are leaps and bounds ahead of us because we have restricted them and they're still kicking our ass. So it's like, yeah, Mistral. Yeah, Mistral is the like pinnacle of open source. Maybe not for long because like I get it. The EU AI bill is kind of like saying it's the opposite of what we would have for like DMCA or like the forum stuff. So in the United States, for instance, I think the EU has this as well. It's kind of like an indemnification clause. It says if you own a forum or a social media platform, you don't necessarily have to be responsible for the stuff. Like YouTube isn't responsible for me creating this and saying that the models in France and in China are better than the models in the US in open source. Like YouTube is gonna like Gemini and Gemma, they're gonna completely disagree with that. Like, but they don't have to represent that. Like me posting to YouTube doesn't co-sign me with YouTube, if that makes sense. But with the new EU AI, it kind of sort of does. It's like if you use Mistral or any of the models that come out of the EU, you kind of are responsible for what people do with that. And if you're just like really smart humans that are creating dope shit, then whoopsie. You know what I mean? It's like Ollama. If you don't know what Ollama is, it's an inference model. It's great. Download it. It's amazing. It's open source to a point, but they just went closed source and allow you to run this on a server farm. So for the longest time, this was something that was open source from GitHub. You can download Mistral, Qwen, DeepSeek, all of these tools, and this was really like the easiest way to inference these. That or like VLLM or other tools. But Ollama just got suddenly an inference of venture capital, and suddenly you can then use a server farm to be able to speed up or turbocharge your responses. So Ollama, OLLMA.org and .com. So .org is going to be your open source, very similar to WordPress.org or WordPress.com. WordPress.org is free, open source, amazing, one of the best tools ever created by humans. It's just great. WordPress.com is the commercial side of that, where they host the open source version for you. So it's like if you don't want to set up your own server, you don't know any about that, you want to like not have security and SSL and all this stuff, WordPress.com is there. Ollama is now doing that, and I get it. They need money too, I guess, but they went from WordPress.org to WordPress.com, and now there's a delta there because now for me as a regular human, if I'm on a MacBook, I can download Ollama, but I would be CPU ridden, and everything is kind of slow. It kind of sucks, but it's there and it works, and you have an offline version of GPT, and you can talk to it, and then you go to this thing where they send you a new update, and now you have a chatbot, and that chatbot is now an application. I think, do I have Ollama running? Yeah. So I now can open Ollama, and I can see this. These are all the models, like they're Claude, Gemma, Mistral, DeepSeek, Llama 3, and Quen. So this is, this isn't connected to the internet. This is running on local model. So what is the capital of France, right? And it's going to go and it's going to tell me. This is inferencing on my CPU. What does that mean? It means I have a GPU. I have a very nice GPU. But this runs on anything. So this will run on a MacBook. It'll run on an old computer. It'll run on your phone. It doesn't matter. What they allow you to do now is go online. And now you can, somewhere that they've gotten a server farm, they've taken in venture capitalist money, and they've said, all right, now if you want this to be faster, if you want this to have multimodality, if you want this to actually like mimic GPT, then you can send this to our server farm. But at that point, there literally is no difference than GPT, because if this is going to a server farm and they're only charging you $20 a month, and they're giving you millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of compute for $20 a month, that is not a tenable business solution. No VC is ever going to give funding to that. It's just not going to happen. So you have to ask yourself, why would they do this? The only reason that they're going to do this is to farm the data. Because these open source models, people are like, oh, well, it's an open source model, and all I'm doing is I'm inferencing on their servers. Okay, great. It costs like $1 million a month to run these servers. Like each H100, each GPU is 25 grand, and they probably have like 100,000 of these GPUs. So where'd that money come from? Where does that money, like, how does that money keep going? The power cost for that is ridiculous. Like, where does that go from? It's definitely not from my $20 a month or your $20 a month. It's just not happening. This is the reason why Cursor is imploding. It's the reason why Claude is now restricting you. It's the reason why OpenAI was free for a long time and now isn't. Is because they have enough information that they no longer need the okie doke people that can't pay for it in their brains. They're like, well, if you're poor, then you don't deserve this. Like, pay us and you'll get the better version. Pay us. Like, I don't know if you guys remember internet net neutrality. This is the same shit. They're saying if you can pay for the internet fast lane, then you'll have a better experience with AI. If you can't, you deal with a 30 seconds inference time. You deal with being on the CPU, right? So like, this is why I'm so critical of all of this stuff, and this is why I'm so bullish on offline stuff. This is why I built Chatbrain. This is why I built Content Buddy. This is why I'm building the slide deck creator. This is why I'm building all this stuff. It's open source, and it's like available to anyone on the mastermind. Like, this is literally why I'm doing this, so that way you can have something like the same speed as GPT or faster, that doesn't ever phone home. It doesn't even know what the internet is. You can choose the model that you like. If you speak Farsi or you speak Chinese, you can grab these models and you can speak, or French, Spanish. You can speak in your natural language, and it's not translated. It's literally trained. Like, OpenAI is trained on English and translates out. Like, Quen and DeepSeek are distilled on their language. So Mandarin and however many other Chinese languages there are, hundreds of them, or any of the Eurasian and Asian languages, those are naturally trained. So if you are like ESL, You don't have to think in English. You don't probably think in English. You think in your native language. If you need to interact with GPT, there's like several layers of translation that happen through that. So if you speak another language, then use that model that's trained in that language. Like, to me, that makes sense. But to the people that are selling this stuff, they're like, nah, man, just speak English. Everyone speaks English. It's like, yeah, but not everybody thinks in English. Like, I don't know. Like, the way I look at it, it's like if you speak a different language, you probably think in that language and you're translating it out. And if you're trying to really get like a response from this thing, it kind of has to be in your native language or it's not real. It's always a translation back and forth. Because even if you spoke to GPT in your native language, like you speak Mandarin, you type Mandarin, or you speak Swedish or whatever, it's always going to be a double translation. It's always going to be your brain translating to English or your brain writing your native language and this thing translating into English and then back into your native language because it's not trained on your native language. Why would they do that? They're Americans. They don't give a shit about you. So they're only going to train it on English because that's what makes sense. Now, does it have the ability to like understand? Yeah, sure. But English and Spanish think differently. Like in English, we say the red car because we talk about colors and descriptors first. In Spanish and other Romance languages, you would say the car is red because you talk about the thing first and the descriptor second. Like those small little things really matter because now we're messing with subject predicate. Now we're messing with like how humans actually communicate, and this thing only speaks English. So it can translate, but it's always going to be Spanglish or English Mandarin. Like there's always going to be that translation. So why not allow people that speak Chinese to speak Chinese and not have to translate? You're never going to get that from any closed source model. And even if you do, they're not going to tell you how that translation happens. So what we can do is we can download offline models and then we can do supervised fine tuning, SFT, on your language. So like literally you can take every piece of thing you've ever written or you can just write a manifesto of like 100,000 words in your actual language and then you can start training it on these things. You do your own human-led real feedback and you create a small model, which is your brain. You should never, ever, ever do that with a closed model because they will just steal your soul. But if it's offline, if it's never connected to the internet, if you can fully trust this thing, then it's amazing because you can give it your deep, dark secrets. You can tell it anything that you want, and it can actually help you in the way that you think. But it's only if it's air gapped, if it never phones home. And that's not profitable. Like, I'll never make money from any of these things that I'm building because no one will ever fund me in the ability to build them. But that doesn't necessarily matter to me. Like, I just need to keep what I have. I'm not trying to get rich and famous here. I'm trying to just continue my lifestyle and try to make sure that people understand what you're doing when you give your soul to these things is training them on your internal, what makes you you. And the second they have that, it's over because they're going to build a digital twin of you, and then once they do that, they're just going to run unlimited permutations of advertisements to understand how to manipulate you, and it's done. If you tell it, like, this makes me mad, then they're going to understand how to make you mad. And if an advertiser wants to make you mad, that's what's going to happen. If you tell it this is how you make me horny, then they're going to say, okay, this is how we do that. If you think they're not selling that data, even they say it's anonymized, okay, answer me this question. If it's anonymized and I can say ask and write in my voice, how can it write in my voice if it doesn't know who I am? If you're a prolific writer and it says, oh, well, all this information is anonymized and this is the only information that we have for like the semantic soup, okay, great. Then how can you tell me write in the style of Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or any of these people if you're saying that you don't know what these people are? You can't reconcile that question. It doesn't exist. You can't say, create me a YouTube video in this person's voice if they say we don't know who this person is. Those two things cannot be reconciled. Like, somebody's lying. Like, pick a YouTuber. It doesn't matter. Any YouTuber. Anyone. Like, that's generally, like, more than 2,000, 3,000 subscribers. Not me. I'm not famous. Don't, whatever. Like, pick anyone and say, create me a YouTube script in this person's voice. It will do it. and it'll be shit. It won't be good, but it will do it. And if you're a fan of that YouTuber, and it can't be like Mr. Beast because that's just not fair. Like somebody that has like 20,000 subs, like somebody that you just like and it doesn't really like go crazy, but it's just a human that you're like, yeah, I like this person, like and say, create me a script in this person's voice. It will do it, and there's no way to reconcile that than saying they were trained that this is this person, this is their voice. Like that's ipso facto. This isn't me getting on like a soapbox and saying, "Yo, like this is the problem." No, that is 100% the only way that this is possible. Because the machine doesn't have context, it's not going to be able to go and assign something based upon what. It has to be labeled. So somebody went through and they took some transcriptions of every single one of that dude's YouTube or that chick's YouTube, and they described it, and then they labeled it, and they labeled it with tags, and those tags are Shawn David. And from there, you can say, create me a YouTube video in the voice of Shawn David. And if you're telling me that this is anonymized data that doesn't exist in any other way than anonymous, then how is that possible? If you can answer that question, please do, because I have yet to been able. This is like once I figured that out, once I started using these tools, and I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me that like specific voice, specific author, specific humans are not included here. This is somehow just a probability engine that takes every YouTube video and says, there's no, I can't answer that. It just doesn't exist. I don't know how. Because to me, it has to be logic that they've labeled these YouTube videos as these people. There's no other way. So if they're doing that, then why do they need your location? Answer that question. Why does GPT and Claude and Gemini all need your location? Why are they geolocating you? Why are they fingerprinting your general location on every query that you're sending? Why do they need that? Why do they need to know that I'm in Pflugerville, not in Austin, in a suburb of Austin? Why do you need that? Okay, what could you possibly need from that information? And the answer to that question that I've asked and they've given is it helps us with personalization. If I'm anonymous and every piece of information that I'm being sent in is anonymous, then what does my location have to do with it? How can you reconcile those two statements? How can you say, I don't need to know who you are, where you are, what you say, whatever, because we can build a probability engine based upon all the information from generally your geolocation of your IP address? Okay, maybe. But then why are you actually fingerprinting my location every time I log into your website? Why do you give me an option in every single one to turn that off? But you don't tell me it's there, I had to find it. There's like logic here. Like there is no answer to that other than they are 100% just siphoning in all information. And yeah, maybe like at the end of the day, they anonymize it when it gets output, maybe. I don't know. Like there's going to be some legal loophole that is there, and they have a bunch of lawyers that are smarter than me that can like talk around this stuff. But I would rather just unplug from it. Like, okay, cool. I'm good. But that doesn't mean that we can't have dope shit. It doesn't mean that we can't have like really cool stuff. It doesn't mean like Chatbrain can't exist. Like if you haven't seen Chatbrain before I go here, I'm sure you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk. I'll show you this. What? Oh, I'm in Terminal 9. I'm in a Windows box, sorry. I forgot I was in Windows. What? What? Oh, main. I'm tired. Stop judging me. I know you're judging me. So what is this? If you haven't seen it, what I've been talking about, it's offline. This is actually a Quen model because it's the strongest one right now, and this allows us to download. Now, Kyle, if you're still on, I know you've already messed with this, but this allows us to basically have the same exact thing as a GPT or Claude or anything like that. And what this does is super clever because it gives you semantic memory. And what does that mean? So if you can see here, like, yay, instant. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Hold on. Sorry, guys. So you can see if I ask it what the capital of France is, it's going to tell me exactly on a score of 91% that I've already asked this. And there's no reason for the model to rerun. There's no reason for the model to go and say, oh, he's asked this exact question before. So, like, you could say, instant. See this? Instant. There's no inference. There's no nothing. But if you were to say, how do I make $1 billion? The answer is be evil. But the now what's happening is this has to actually go and infer the model. That's pretty freaking quick. This is completely offline. Okay, this does not. If I wasn't connected to the internet and I was somewhere on a laptop, this would still work. But what makes this super clever is this: your ChatGPT and your Claude JSON. If you go into GPT or into Claude, you can actually extract all of your chats and you can upload them to the system. So everything that you've ever said to GPT, ever said to Claude, you can then incorporate into ChatBrain, so you don't miss a skip. And anything that you've ever asked before, it will go and have an embeddings table of that information. So you can see here, I have 15,389 cached chats. So between Claude and ChatGPT over the last 4 years or whatever, I have created 15,389 user assistant key pairs, and I have 384 queries into those cached items. So since I've been using ChatBrain, I have had 384 conversations just in test that it will answer. So, like, whatever, it doesn't matter, those things. So those 384 questions will instantaneously be answered and will never have to query the model again. So I never have to worry about knowing a different answer or hallucination or anything like that because it's pulling from the embedding side. If it doesn't, it will go and query the model, and this model, as I'm building, it will allow you to do the same thing that Olama does, and it will say whatever model that you want to use, that's fine, don't give a shit, don't care, won't know. And it will always save your information. So if you look at the code here, you can see that it's loading the sentence transformers, and it sees if I have CUDA and if I have tensor cores. I have one CUDA device, boom. So that loads it onto my GPU, so it's super fast. But what this does is it actually embeds my inquiry. So instead of taking raw text and then taking that text and then asking it into the LLM, it actually creates a free vector embedding of my query. So it changes my query into a math formula, and then it goes, can I solve this math formula from the math that I'm already storing in those 15,389 questions? And what's great about this is because it is an embedding, I can use something called Facebook AI semantic search. So what that does is it says, using a logical probability algorithm, what's the closeness that I am good with that I'm asking the same question? So for instance, you could say, what's the general theory of relativity? What is the special theory of relativity? What's that dude with weird hair that always writes on a chalkboard? What's his theory? All three of those things, well, special and general are different, but whatever. Like, what's the theory of relativity? What is E equals mc squared? There's a trillion different ways to ask that question. The way that I like to really describe this is there is a billion different ways to ask for the bathroom, but there's one pee-pee dance. There's one universal, non-communicative way of someone is in distress and needs to use the toilet. There's one. Everyone has it. Like they cross the legs and their hands over their genitals, right? Pee-pee dance. Every kid does it. Any human that looks at another person doing that is going to be like, oh, they need the toilet. There's one choking sign. There's one universal way of describing something in such a way that other humans can get it. This tool is doing the best it can to use fuzzy logic to determine what is the lowest common denominator of what you're asking. All the LLMs do that. That's what tokenization is. That's what they're doing. They're using all the information in the world to determine what is this human actually asking so we can answer. The cool thing is about ChatBrain is this is learns from you. So the more you ask it the same type of question, the more it can give you a similar response. So if you start asking this thing like deeply personal questions, it doesn't have to even query the model because you can give it feedback. You can say, nah, this isn't close enough, try with the full model. And eventually you'll be able to rate the answers and change the weights yourself. So you can downgrade the answer and from the model and say, no, this isn't, I don't like this. You'll be able to change the tone of voice. You'll be able to do whatever it is that you want to do, and it's specifically for you. So depending upon how you interact with it, you'll have a completely different chat brain than I would because we're different. And that's how it should be. But GPT and Claude and all these closed models, they try to do the same thing like what insurance people do, and that's like a singular representation of a 45-year-old white guy from Connecticut. So there's a whole bunch of 45-year-old white guys from Connecticut, but I'm not like most of them, if any of them. I'm very different. Like, so for me to be lumped in with all of that, then that is just not going to give me the experience that is good. It's just not going to give me the experience that I can trust because it's like an amalgamation of all these people that don't really make any sense to me. Like I left that state and I haven't lived there in 20 years. So like what would I have to do with anything with that group of people? But I do fit into that group of people. So for them to say, well, this type of people likes this type of answer, it doesn't make any sense, you know? Or like you're whatever, XYZ, doesn't matter. Pick some type of stereotype that you would be, and that's what they try to link you into. They try to get you to that. So why I'm so bullish on all of this stuff is because we can have our own personal AIs. We can have our own personal offline air-gapped AI that learns from us, that actually helps us, that will learn our voice, will learn our weaknesses, will learn our strengths without reporting to anyone what those strengths and weaknesses are. I have no interest in what your strengths or weaknesses are unless we have a conversation. The systems that I build don't need to let me know what your deepest, darkest secrets are. I don't even want to know them. But it would help if you have something that you can speak to. It would help if you could say, here's what I'm struggling with, without that all of a sudden getting ads for BetterHelp or for freaking Cialis or Viagra or divorce lawyer or some other manipulative way of saying, well, this person is probably in sort of a need for this thing, and we can recommend a service based upon these variables. Like, to me, that's the definition of evil. Like, why would you ever do that? Like, it's like a therapist recommending a divorce lawyer instead of trying to help you through it, you know? So to me, it's like these are the most critical things, and that's why I started the LLMMastermind, because it's kind of like a crowdsourced way of allowing people to learn and rent my brain so that way I can continue to build these things and I can focus on them, because I'm never really looking to sell this stuff, so I need like ways to make money because I still have a mortgage. So it's like, how do I do this? Okay, I can add as much value as I can. I can sell 3 out of 10 things that I do. 7 out of 10 things can be just for the betterment of humans, and hopefully those 3 out of 10 will pay for the next 7. So, yeah. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Hopefully, like, this was useful. I don't know. Let me know. It's an experiment. I just talked for 3 hours. Hopefully, it was useful. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't really even know how to like end these things. I guess I can just stop talking, but if you know me, that's pretty hard for me to do. Air gap means it's never connected to the internet. You're literally gapping through air. So, for instance, in like healthcare, you would have servers that are surrounded by a thing called a Faraday cage, which actually would not even allow electricity near it. You would have like they're completely offline and they've never touched the internet because anytime anything is ever connected to the internet, it's an attack vector. So, for instance, like for Chaprain, right? Um, you would only like you could download Chaprain onto a hard drive. Like you could download it onto something like this, which is a hard drive, and then you can go to Walmart and you can buy a laptop for a couple $100, like a Chromebook for a couple $100, and you could literally like t- put it in airplane mode and never take it off, and then disable the internet and never connect to Wi-Fi, never connect to any ever, and run Chaprain because it the model's included. You never have to go to Hugging Face. All the stuff that I'm building, it includes the LLM with it, so that way it's just incorporated. It literally is just running it. So you download Chaprain, run Chaprain, and you don't ever have to connect to Hugging Face. You don't ever have to connect to download any models. It's just here you go. It's like the old school way of building software before the internet because there was no internet and you got a CD and that CD got put into your computer and the person who built that just hoped it worked for you. Like there's no 0 day patches. There's no like go to the internet and download the latest model. There's none of that because that didn't exist. So I was taught back in the day, like when I got my first degrees, like there wasn't the internet. Like when I was learning software engineering, there was no like repo git. There was no GitHub. There was no connect to our server. There was nothing. Like if you bought a video game, you went to the store, you bought a video game, and you read the manual on the way home. You had a disc, and you put it in. You owned the software. It was yours. And if it didn't work, like okay, you called the number on the back of the thing, and you're like, yo. This doesn't work, and they're like, "Okay, did you plug it in?" Like that's the tech support. That's where all of this tech support stuff comes from. That time, but if you're internet native and you were born when the internet already existed, that doesn't that's a foreign concept to you. Like software as a subscription. Um yeah. So software as a subscription, I don't even think it should be service. It should be subscription. I don't think that even exists. Like software in and of itself, I don't believe ever can be a subscription. Like it has to it's a thing. It's not ongoing, and that's why all the software engineers now, like the code base is ridiculous, and it's ever growing, and it's like this living thing. You can never say like when is Facebook finished, or like when is like even Adobe. Adobe used to be one of the most pirated softwares on the planet, and they didn't care because it allowed people to use their software. And then when they were ready to purchase it, when they were good, they did. That's how it worked. They knew it was being pirated, but they didn't care because the newest versions never were. It was always previous versions. So what happens in the situation where it's like you can no longer buy Microsoft Word. You can buy it Office 365. To me, that's not software. I don't own that. I'm renting it. So like that's the whole thing. Like stop renting your intelligence. Like stop renting yourself to these people. Like stop renting your soul to an LLM. That's all you're doing is you're stopgapping. Like you're trading convenience for basically them being able to build a digital twin of you. And if you don't think they're doing that, okay, that's fine. I'm not saying I'm correct, but I have not had any answers to any questions that I've been asking that says that they're not. So it's like, okay, how do we know that they're not just building a basic neural network of Shawn David or Asfar? How do we know that? The more we give it, the more it knows who I am. The more I can say, oh, this is a better response. But better means that it understands me. And if it understands me, that means that this information is being sold to those people who would want to understand me. And those people aren't nice. So I don't subscribe to that. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's good for humanity. I don't think it's good for any of us to sit there and give our inner, deepest, darkest secrets to people who would really use that to manipulate us. You know, there's a reason that patient client and lawyer, like patient doctor patient and lawyer client confidentiality exists, and why there's such hard consequences for these professional people if they break that trust. There is no such law, no such anything. Yeah, sure. I'm sure there is. But for now, and just marketing, I mean, that's reductive of how powerful marketing is and what actually is happening within that. But yeah, I mean, I really believe, you know, in the next 10 minutes, I'll get off a soapbox, but I really believe what they're trying to do is build digital twins. And if what I mean by that is we have a consideration set as humans, meaning that once we have a top three of something like Pepsi, Coke, and RC Cola, Pepsi, Coke, and X. So you have Pepsi and Coke, which is your top one and two, and then the third one maybe is like Dr Pepper, right? Everyone, like if you drink soda, or like you have your three favorite video games or your three favorite X, Y, and Z. Usually rule of three. We humans kind of work in triplets. So we have our top three consideration set of anything. Like you like top three dogs or top three coffees or whatever. You're going to have your preference. You're going to have your first, your second, and then your third is going to be the acceptable one, where you're like, I like Coca-Cola, I'll accept Pepsi, and I'll drink RC Cola if I'm at a place and they only have that. Like that's probably aging me a lot, but whatever. Your Sam's Club or your Walmart version of things. Now, I have yet to meet a human that prefers the lower version, like because that they know their place and they're not going to put the same R&D into it. Close enough is fine because it's the acceptable choice. You're not going to go to the store, and if you want soda and they only have the third choice, you're going to buy it. If you go to the store and you want cola and they don't have that, you're not going to buy a beer, for instance, right? Now, perceptionally, why you like Coke or why you like Pepsi is going to be a lot of marketing. Geolocation has absolutely nothing to do with taste buds. Like that's scientifically proven. But who cares? That's marketing. The reason why you like Coke or Pepsi, you can say it's because whatever. Not true. Like they're basically the same, but we perceptionally add our self worth into it based upon a lot of things. That consideration set is going to be, I believe, gone for those who are AI native. Like anyone that is born right now at like age 5 and up is never going to live in a time where they don't have infinite access to information, which means they don't have to consider anything. Like the level of queries of information. I was born in a time when the internet didn't exist. If I wanted to learn something, I either went to the library, I asked another human, or I figured it out on my own. Those are my three choices, right? Asking a human is going to be number one for me. Looking it up on a library is nothing going to be two, and I'll accept figuring it out. Like that's my consideration set. That's what I have. If you're internet native, meaning that you were born from like 97 on, the internet has always been there. It always has been there. There's never a time in life when the internet wasn't there. You are going to have your consideration set. Maybe at that time it was like Google, Lycos, and Ask Jeeves, right? You had your three search engines, and then you're going to use Google, and if you couldn't find it, you would go to Yahoo or whatever. Maybe a human is your third. You'll accept a human. And then afterwards, if you're social media native, meaning that you were born into a time like after 2005, and yeah, 2005, that means that social media has always been here. It never wasn't not here. It's always been here. So you're going to go to Reddit, or you're going to go to like TikTok or something. That's going to be your three social media. Is like, if you're a millennial, you're probably going to go to Facebook, or boomer, you're going to go to Facebook, and then millennials are going to go to Reddit. Gen Alpha is going to go to YouTube or TikTok. Those are coming after those. They're going to be AI native, so they're not, the whole concept of consideration set is going to be gone. They're just going to have an answer in front of them. So there's like the search and query for them is going to be very different. And I believe the reason they're doing this is to create digital twins, because it's going to remove the concept of message in medium. Meaning, right now, I'm streaming on YouTube, right? That means I'm creating YouTube content. I'm not, because I don't give a shit. But like normally, someone that would be streaming on YouTube would be creating for YouTube. It would be like, I'm on YouTube, I'm going to be doing YouTube, I'm going to be different or whatever, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. I'm creating YouTube content, right? Or I'm making a TikTok, which means I have to be short form, or YouTube short, or I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to create based upon the medium. Like, And if I'm writing a novel, I'm going to write in a certain way. If I'm writing an encyclopedia, no one even knows what an encyclopedia is. If I'm writing a Wikipedia entry, it's going to be different than a Reddit post, right? In the future, very near future, none of that's going to matter. Like, it's not, you're not going to have Reddit and social media and Wikipedia because it's just a universal access to information. If you're born in 2025, by the time you're 15, the concept of a different source of information, the concept of a consideration set that you would say, I want to get this voice, is not going to be there. So, like, they're not going to create TikToks. They're going to feed their information into the AI, and then the AI is going to take that. The digital twin of their AI is going to understand how they like to consume data, and then it's just going to create that for them. So, like, if they liked what would be a perceptional YouTube from somebody of our generation or after, the AI is just going to use VO10 and create a YouTube video. And if they like documentaries, they're gonna query and it's gonna return a documentary. If they like manga and video games, it's gonna create that. If they like PhD level dissertations, it's gonna create that. But it's gonna be all the same query. So, like, Marcus's and Asfar's and Kyle's and Shawn's and Nicole's, everyone's going to have their own digital twin, which represents their own quote unquote preference, but that preference is only going to come from their input. So they're going to put as much input as they possibly can, pour their emotional soul into this thing. That digital twin is then going to understand. And when they say, I want a soda, whoever pays the most is going to be the one that delivers that soda. And then that's that. They're not even going to know Pepsi, Coke, and RC exists. It's just going to be, oh, you're this type of person, and Coca-Cola has paid for this ICP, ideal client profile. So we know you would generally enjoy, like, this is pedantic and reductive, and please don't take this as science, but I'm trying to break this down in such a way. You understand that you're the type of person that likes this, so we're going to give you that. And it's going to feel great for them. That's the problem. It's going to feel amazing. Because they're going to like Coke better than Pepsi because of a whole bunch of psychological things. But they're not going to have freedom of choice. Not that we even do. Like, we don't really have choice. But like George Carlin said, we have 2 political parties and 31 flavors of ice cream. Like, we don't really have choice. But they're not going to have any choice. Like, it's just going to get to a point where they're going to say, I'm thirsty, and the AI is going to deliver them what they need to drink. Like, I like to describe it like this. My father, who was born in 1950, is pre-dial phone. So his brain, if he sees water on the kitchen floor, he needs to discern and diagnose, is this a leak? If he does, he's going to search out a reputable plumber or something, and he's going to contact that person, and they're going to have an exchange, and that plumber is going to come and fix the thing. Somebody from my age is going to see that leak. We're going to investigate. We're going to deep dive and Google it, and we're going to say, what does it mean when there's water, da 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 da, and then Google's going to come back and say, oh, this is a leak. You probably need a plumber. Here's a list of people that have paid for you to know that we exist in the map pack. Okay, so there's the first layer of manipulation. Then the people that come after me, who are social media, are going to go to freaking Reddit, and they're going to say, hey, I got this water here. What does this mean? And then the people who paid the most are going to have the most Reddit farm karma, and they're going to say, oh, did you know that ABC plumbing exists? Da, 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 da. And then the people that come after them are going to go to TikTok and YouTube, and they're going to post a video of the water leaking on their floor, and they're going to be like, what is this? And probably do like a dance or some shit. And then from there, it's going to be fed ads from the algorithm of plumbers because they interacted with the algorithm. Then the people after them, they're going to take a video of the leak on the fucking thing, and the plumber's just going to show up. Because the AI doesn't give a shit. It's just going to say there's a leak, and whoever paid the most to be in that area is just going to get dispatched, and the AI is going to be like, yeah, no worries. Plumber's coming. You don't have to worry about what this is. There's a leak on the floor, and maybe it'll explain. Maybe it'll tell them. But they're not going to care. Because my dad didn't care. My dad just needed the thing fixed. But he didn't have access to the information. So he had to go and search for that. His brain works like an encyclopedia. His brain works like the library. He's got the Dewey Decimal System, and he's got all these books in his brain, and he's got the plumber book and this and that, and he needs to go and discern and do deep learning. My brain works a little bit differently, closer to that, but it's more like I'm going to search through the internet and I'm going to use Google's 10 blue links and then maybe click on a few links and go and do a little bit of research and figure it out, but way less than he did. And then his father before that would just fucking fix it. Like, that's the difference. His father didn't have the plumber, he would just fix it. So the abstraction of what it is what's happening, and why I think they're doing this, why they're giving millions of dollars to compute for free, is so that way they can build digital twins, so they can remove the consideration set from choice whatsoever, and it can just be like, hey, I have a leak, and then yeah, no problem, or like a drone just shows up and fixes it, you know. So that is, I think, where it's going, and I think that's why they geolocate. That's why they will say it's anonymized, but they need to be able to say who this human is. That the only logical explanation I have is it's moving to people that are AI native. It will never work on us. It'll never work on anyone that's alive right now seeing this technology being built. The same way we will never fall for email scams. We never will fall for email scams because we were born into email. Or I wasn't, but I will never fall for a phone scam. You can never ever call me and get me to give you my social security number on the phone because I'm phone native. The phone always existed. It was a level of communication that always existed. I understand, and it's ambient. It's just there. I will never be scammed by the phone. Maybe my generation would be scammed by Nigerian Prince emails, though, because we learned how to communicate using the phone. You can't screw me over on the phone, but emails are different. You for sure are going to be able to fool me using AI and social media because it's my generation, I mean, is because we are not native to it. So there's so many attack vectors that we wouldn't think of because our brain is still working on the Google blue links. So anyone that's AI native, meaning that you were born from 2005 till now, I mean 2023 till now and after, is never going to get scammed on the phone, is never going to get scammed. They're not even going to have phones. They're never going to get scammed on the phone or email. Like, my dad would never get scammed by somebody sending him a letter saying, put this dollar in the chain mail. Like, there used to be, like, regular-ass mail that you would get from the postman, and it'd be like, put $1 in and send it, and then everyone else will put $1 in and send it, right? His father would, because they were Pony Express. So you just look at the level of scams as we move forward, and you can see how the manipulation happens. Just see what levels of native information is available to you, what ambient information is available for you, and from there you can just extrapolate it out. You say, oh, okay, this is how this is going to work. Remove the consideration set completely, and it's, you know, it's going to be, to them, amazing. But to anyone that actually had the ability to choose the plumber that they wanted to based upon whatever reason, they're going to look at this as a dystopian society. They're going to be like, yo, like, this is not cool. But if you're AI native, if you are born into a world that this has always been here, it always has been there, there's never a time when it wasn't, like, well, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't even know how to lick a stamp. But look, I'm going to get off because I'm hungry. But look, this is how it works. If you want to know the difference between native and non-native, go ask Gen Alpha what a yellow pages is. That's all you need. All you need. Go ask anyone who is like 15 or younger what the yellow pages is. Don't give them any context clues. Don't give them anything. Just go up to somebody who is like 10 years old and be like, hey, what's the yellow pages? They will literally have no idea. And for me, that was like getting your business in the yellow pages. People would literally name their company AAA just so they would be in the front, or Triple Z so they would be in the back. There was a whole entire thing with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Ask anyone that's my age what a typesetter is. They don't know because they don't need it. So, like, to say that these types of information, like the access to information, is just removing consideration set. So think about that. Like, this is why LLMMastermind exists, so that way you can get off of this. Because the people that come after us, they're not going to even care about any of this. This is just a stopgap to keep us using the same tools without, like, continuing the training. But it's not like we can stop it, you know? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 Angie's weddings, exactly. Or like, or triple A plumber. You know, how many triple A plumbers are in the world? And then you have these people that are doing like best dentist near me. Like they literally named their company best dentist near me. It's the same shit. But you ask anybody like now what the Google Map Pack is, and they're probably not going to know. And the real way to go about this is you can see like a boomer that codes in Python, right? Somebody who learned in Cobalt and Fortran. They code in Python because they learned how to, not because that's how they think. They there's just an order of magnitude different from somebody my age and somebody like my dad's age who can both program. But I speak Python and he translates from object oriented old school pointers into Python, and it's a little geeky, but it's the same thing of like the Cliff Notes and the novel. Like before Cliff Notes, everyone wrote novels. Like Socrates was worried about the writing down is going to remove the ability for critical thinking. Like forever, the formulation of new technology has been scary, and this is just one of those things where it's just the fastest that we've ever done. So yeah. I think I'm gonna do this every week. If you guys want to show up, I'll be here. I do this privately in LL Mastermind, so if you join, you'll get a lot more of this type of stuff. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully that was informative and it was something that was enjoyable. And yeah, we will see you next time. Bye.